love me so much more than I could ever know. Your love is deeper than this world will ever show. And all of life's beauty shines around this moment now. The sky and the cliffs, they seem to change my life somehow. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, I will never be the same, never be the same ever again. Well, here I am waiting, Lord, my life is just for you. Please unfold all the plans that you would have me do. And if all the world's just a breath and nothing's here to stay, then all of the love we feel will save us anyway. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, I will never be the same, will never be the same ever again.
Hello and welcome to SDAQ&A. My voice is a tiny bit better than yesterday, Gillian, but
not much.
Much better. And I've got a big gig on the weekend, so I'm drinking lots of honey and Celtic salt and hot water. So today we're doing a replay of season 2, and I've invited Gillian on, as I often do when we replay season 2, because her and her husband were at the epicenter of Glacier View, and season 2 is 86 episodes full of content about Dr. Desmond Ford and Glacier View and Gillian Ford. And today we're replaying an interview I did in 2020. So those of you that are listening on the podcast, the audio, which we're playing catch up on, you will think that this is 2020. And in fact, my voice is trying to come to you from 2025. And so we're replaying this season, putting it on YouTube, because Facebook has now literally deleted all of those interviews, unfortunately. And we're getting them onto YouTube so that they aren't lost to the world and people can really enjoy this seminal season. Where we look at all things Glacier View. And wow, wasn't it an incredible season, Gillian? I learned so much. And when I began watching this one back with Dr. Richard Coffen, because I just wanted to watch a little bit to refresh my memory. A lot of these I haven't watched since 5 years ago, since 2020. And I remember very quickly that what a gentleman Richard Coffen still is. He may even be watching. It's a bit late on his side of the world, on Eastern time. But I hope he gets to watch this again later. And I really enjoyed chatting with him, and what a wonderful person he is. So, Gillian, just recap for us, and then we'll get straight into it, because it's the Great Disappointment Day. That's why we're wearing very colourful outfits, because providentially it turned out not to be a disappointment, but also because here in Australia it's the next day, but in the States it's October 22, and 1844 holds a great deal of importance to the Adventist Church. But for me, another reason why it's not a great disappointment is it's Renee's birthday, and she's turning 13 today. So I'm festive because she's the opposite of a great disappointment. And we're having a birthday party for her later, so we need to crack on and get this program started. And so, Gillian, share a little bit about your memory of the interview from 5 years ago, and also tell us a little bit about Richard as well, just for those watching. Thank you.
Okay, so Richard Coffen is a highly intelligent, a more liberal Adventist, but I haven't watched the program again, but I remember from the first time that he talked about Heppenstall's role in there, and the people who had studied under Heppenstall couldn't understand that he wouldn't back Des up. They were extremely surprised. Now, Coffen was the editor of Southern Pub before it was closed down, and he was the chief editor at the time that edited Des's Black Daniel book. And I'm always grateful that in his program he didn't mention what I'm about to mention, that while in Washington D, he said to me, "Why didn't you type the manuscript?" And I can't remember why I didn't type that one, but after that slight rebuke, I decided I would do all the rest, and I pretty much have, except for the ones that Good News Unlimited did. So we knew him because of that. And he remembers that I cooked a beautiful meal. I don't know how many beautiful meals I ever cooked, but I did one for him. Anyway, great man. He often writes on Adventist Today and Spectrum. It's always very well done. So he's worth listening to.
Yeah, so well, let's get on with it. We're both going to watch in the background. Sometimes I might remove our camera because it blocks some of the text underneath, but we will be watching from the sidelines. And Gillian, I might get you to mute your voice, your end, because if I mute it and something goes wrong and I get the boot, you'll be able to keep running the show without me, because you can unmute yourself then. Is that possible?
Hang on a minute. Microphone.
And by the way, while you're doing that, welcome everybody that's watching. And you may note we have started a tiny bit earlier today because we have a lot to get through, and it's my daughter's birthday party I want to make sure I get to on time.
Yeah, it doesn't tell me where I can mute it.
Well, I'll if there's a problem, I'll log in on my phone and I can do the mute thing anyway. I'm not expecting a problem at all, but yeah. Okay, well, here we go. And as I said, welcome everybody. Good to have you here. Here's the replay of the Des Ford Glacier View Series 2, number 28, with Dr. Richard Coffen. And it'll start any second now. He says, hopefully. Can you still hear me, Gillian? Hi, and welcome to SDAQ&A podcast, and now live on Facebook in our private group, SDAQ&A, where you can watch live if you're a member, and you can also interact, and we encourage people to write comments and hit the like button and hit the love heart anytime they see or hear something they like. And my special guest today is Dr. Richard Coffen. It's good to have you here, Richard. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Richard, you were previously, amongst many other things, the Review and Herald Publishing Association editor.
Yes, sir.
And I thought we might just kick off with just a couple of recollections you had from that time period. And then we're going to ask you a few questions about your own personal journey, where you were born, the process you went through to gain various credentials and studies that you've done, where and when, that kind of thing, just to get to know you a little better. And then we're going to chat a little bit about Glacier View and see where the conversation goes. So tell us a little bit about your time with the Review and Herald.
Well, actually, I began at Southern Publishing Association in Nashville, Tennessee. I had been a pastor in Massachusetts for 6 years and was surprised to receive the call to go down to Nashville. I was a displaced Yankee down there, made lots of friends though. We were there 10 years, and then the Review and Southern Publishing were merged. And so in 1960, we moved back northward, and so the rest of my career was there at the Review and Herald Publishing Association. The first, I think it was a couple of years, it was still in Tacoma Park or Silver Spring down there in Maryland. And then the last years, it was in Hagerstown, Maryland, where they built a totally new facility there. And so it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot from the authors I dealt with. Most of the time, my work was with book authors, either as a substantive or line editor, also as an acquisitions editor. And then when the publishing house took on a presidential organization, I became a vice president there, and moved around there with the editors and wore different hats, well, at least different titles as the years went by. And it was always illuminating for me personally. It was always hard to write letters to authors and say, you know, I'm so sorry. Our book, I had a committee though I could blame. Yeah. Our book committee has voted to return this manuscript to you. And so it was hard, and I tried very hard to let authors down easily. Whether they were seasoned authors or not, they put a lot of time in writing a book. Whether it was showing any quality is another matter, but there was a lot of time invested.
Yeah.
And so again, I tried very hard to work gently, let's put it that way, with the authors.
To give them an encouraging no, but maybe a push into try again later or something like that?
If there was hope.
Yes, yes.
Some of the too many of the book manuscripts, there was no hope.
Yeah.
The authors were totally amateur. They had good intentions. We even got some books from non-Adventist authors. I remember one which I didn't even have to take to the book committee. The opening sentence was something like, Mary lost her virginity behind the barn, and I knew that was a story we just weren't going to publish.
That one got the form letter.
Yes, yeah.
How many kind of books came across your desk in a week on average?
Well, both publishing houses were, let's say, small compared with the big religious publishers throughout the country. Like in Nashville, Tennessee, there was the Southern Baptist group who did publishing. We received anywhere from 300 to 400 book manuscripts a year. We could only publish a certain number anyway. The market you can't flood the market.
Yeah.
And so usually we would only accept maybe 10% at the most.
Right.
So throughout the course of a year, I'd be looking at 300 to 400.
Wow. And
lucky. You can't read all of those.
No, I was going to say, lucky you could probably find within the first page at least a few like the one you mentioned earlier and be able to move through them
also,
quite quickly.
Peter, the decision was never up to me as to accept or reject. We had what we used to call a stable of readers, some within the publishing house, some outside the publishing house, who were willing to look at the manuscripts. We never paid them for that. This was just all free.
Yeah.
And they were very helpful. And so we would tabulate, the secretary would tabulate the responses, and we would take those to the book committee.
Right.
And sometimes the book committee would accept a book that I thought we should not have accepted.
Right.
But it was a committee vote.
Yeah.
And one time, Elder Neil Wilson was talking with me, and he wanted to know why we had published a certain book. And I said, well, Elder Wilson, I had voted against it, but the committee wanted to publish it. Well, he said, it shouldn't be that way. You should tell the committee how to do it.
That from what I've learned about him, it sounds like him. I got to meet him.
Very
once,
brilliant
actually.
man, and I really appreciated him on a personal basis.
Yeah.
But he was he had a reputation for being on the dictatorial side. This committee will vote on this until we get it right.
I've noticed that familial trend in recent years. So what time period are we looking at that you were kind of doing that kind of work where you're accepting and rejecting manuscripts?
Yeah.
What years?
It started in 1970.
Yeah.
In Nashville, Tennessee at Southern Publishing. And when I went there, I was an associate book editor. And, I don't know, a year or so after I landed there, our book editor, Bob Nixon, who was there, decided he wanted to become an attorney.
Wow.
So he left. And the publishing house was looking for someone to replace him. And we had two of us who were associates left after, Bob went on to study. And I don't know who all the board looked for or looked at, but they put me in as acting book editor. And after a while, they asked if I would become the book editor. And that happened. And when we merged in 1980, and I was rummaging through the files and trying to figure out what files we were going to take to the DC location and what files we were going to toss, I found the committee minutes, the board minutes. And it said something like this: after asking all the desirable people to become the next book editor, and they all said no, we asked Richard Coffen.
I'm sure that's not true.
It is true.
Really? Hey,
Yeah,
well,
I got a big bang out of that. That was so much
from out of their great disappointment came a providential posting. So from about 1970 through the 70s, when did that role finish for you?
Again, pardon?
When did that role finish for you?
Okay, 1980. The merger, the two publishing houses had to merge. It was at the end of '79 when we had the constituency meetings. And at Southern Publishing, the Southerners are pretty strong-minded people at times. I understand some Australians know what that means.
Yeah.
And when Neil Wilson was chairing the constituency meeting, and the constituency voted not to merge, and he was not happy. And you could tell he was really not happy. And finally, one of the union presidents, Ben Leach, got up and said, well, Mr. Chairman, the people here in the South, they're really good people, but sometimes they don't understand the issues. And so maybe they didn't quite understand the issues here today, or the issue. And so maybe you should clarify and we can vote again. Well, Elder Wilson made it quite clear what the issue was.
Boy, that's interesting.
At Southern Publishing, they did everything. I don't know, did they have in-gathering down in Australia?
Yes.
Yeah, well, all the pamphlets, all the little containers, all that kind of stuff was work done at or through Southern Publishing. And Elder Wilson made it clear there at the constituency meeting that if we continued on without merging, we would no longer get any of this work from the General Conference.
Interesting.
And there was always something, all year long, there was always something in process regarding in-gathering. And so it was a very important foundation financially for the publishing house.
Yeah.
So
he was kind of saying, if you don't do it my way, we're going to end the monetization from our end.
Yeah. You will die a natural death within months.
He and Ted seem to have this amazing ability to grasp the big picture of what they see, what they want Adventism to be, and then just make it happen.
Yeah.
Do you see similarities between the Ted model and the Neil model?
Yes, except, and Ted was my boss for, 4 or 5 years at the Review. But I have to say, I think his father had more, should I say, panache.
Right.
Neil Wilson could talk on 100 sides of a topic for 3 hours without stopping and hardly taking a breath.
Wow.
A brilliant mind.
Yes.
I'm exaggerating, of course, but brilliant mind. And I did respect that.
Yeah, he was possibly also living in times that weren't as politically correct or needing to be as politically correct, and he was able to kind of speak off the cuff. Whereas Ted, I can tell that whenever he's speaking publicly, he's going, right, now if I say this is going to happen. So he scripts what he says.
Yes. Yeah.
But I mentioned earlier, I met Neil Wilson once in the early days of when I was teaching in New Zealand. He came through maybe 1987 or something. Would that be? When did he finish his?
Wow,
presidency?
that might be about right. Well,
he was still president. So anyway, I'm not sure with these dates. But I remember asking him, because all the teachers got together and he did the morning devotional There was only about 10 of us. It was quite an interesting experience. And
Yes.
I remember as a young fella asking him, I just can't help asking questions. Here we are today. And I said to him, why is it that the church isn't growing in Australia and New Zealand,
Mm.
but it's growing elsewhere in other parts of the world? And it stumped him a bit, but he then did gather his thoughts. And I remember him speaking very eloquently and sharing his thoughts. And he had quite a charisma about him too, which I
Yes.
think was,
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Yes. And he would remember your name forever.
yeah,
You know, you could be at the World General Conference session and some delegate way back in the back row would stand up and he'd say, "Oh, yes, brother." You know, really?
yeah. Incredible
Amazing.
mind.
Mm.
Do you think, when I think about, because I love reading about Adventist history, there's such drama and you can't take your eyes off it. It's like watching Bold and the Beautiful sometimes with, not that I watch that show, but it's
Yeah.
like a soap in some ways.
Yeah.
And I remember reading a lot about Ellen White and her dealings with A.G. Daniels. And
Yes.
he struck me as being a similar kind of powerful personality
Yeah, I
as
think
Neil
so.
Wilson. Have you researched his kind of life at
No,
all?
not much at all.
Yeah.
No, just am familiar with a little bit of some of the things he did, and I think
Mm.
you're spot on.
And
Brilliant man, and knew where he was going,
yeah, she's
and didn't always get along with the prophetess.
no. She even I don't know, I'm just kind of surmising with my limited knowledge, but she seemed to be um, her interactions with him kind of helped her narrative with helping to set up the unions, where she was really against this kind of kingly
Yes,
global leadership.
yes, yes.
And I remember reading a story where there was one year they decided there would be no GC president. He would just be a chairman, and that every
Okay.
few months they would revolve people on the committee as the chairman for that month or whatever. Um, and I think there's a letterhead which reflects that he is the chairman, but the next time the meetings rolled around and the letterheads were put out, he had changed it to president again. So he kind of had that same kind of I'm going to push things through mentality that I think
Mm,
Neil kind of had as well.
yeah.
What do you think Ellen would say to Neil Wilson and Ted Wilson today? Because there seems to be a little bit of kingship going on.
Yeah, I'm afraid that is the case. At least it seems to me that, and I'm not in the inner circles, but what I hear drifting around,
Mm, mm.
Yeah, I think Peter, she would have some pointed words.
Oh, it'd be fascinating.
Yeah.
What a powerful woman she was. I've read some transcripts of hers from live sermons, and in fact, there's a whole book that I've got here. I think she did 10 sermons in the 1888,
Okay.
conference,
Mm-hmm.
and she is powerful. They're just transcribed literally. Someone must have had is it a stenographer or something in the building, and
Yeah.
she spoke with such power and passion, and I would love to have go back in time and listen to her. It'd be quite interesting. Do you, let's talk a little bit. We'll come back to that. Oh, by the way, do you remember which book Neil was saying he wished hadn't?
No, I don't.
No.
There was one that he was not happy. Well, there were actually two that he was not happy with. Uh, One was the book about the openness of God by Rick Rice, and that had gone through the committees and voted, had almost unanimous voting. There were probably one or two no's, but out of 20 or more yeses,
Yeah.
and he called the he called the president of the publishing house, Bud Otis, and he said, I want that book treated with benign neglect. Well, Elder
What a
Wilson went
quote.
off to Africa on a trip.
Say that again.
And all of a sudden, the whole printing of this book disappeared from the warehouse. Gone.
Wow.
And no one knew where it had gone. Where did they go? We don't know. Well, then Elder Wilson got back from Africa and he phoned me. And he was really rip snorting angry.
Wow.
And if he were a swearing person, he would have sworn, you know. And he wanted to know what had happened to this book. And I said, well, Elder Wilson, I really don't know. He said, you're talking to the wrong person. You need to talk to Elder Otis. And he did. And you know, miraculously, all those books reappeared in the warehouse.
Oh, that is classic. Boy, he certainly had some power.
And you know, that book sold like crazy after that.
Yeah. What kind, like you were presiding over publishing in the heyday of book publishing, really, like that 70s, 80s era of people buying books and selling books was huge. What would you expect your bestseller of the late 70s to have reached numbers wise?
Probably one of the top was a story we published by a brand new author, and the book was called Mindy. And we first published, it was kind of an autobiographical novel, is really what it was. And we first published it in hardcover, and that went like crazy. And so, I don't know, a couple of years later, we republished in softcover, in a paperback version. And it sold very, very well. And so that was probably one of our better sellers. There were others that
When you say it sold well, how many copies would you be talking about?
Oh, let's see. Generally, our initial printing orders were rather small, probably around 4,000 to 5,000. And that would have been the hardcover. And then after that, it was for the paperbacks, we probably were close to doubling that for a printing order.
Right.
Market was, you know, at that point we had 3 publishing houses in North America, and a very finite market.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back
finite.
then there was, I think, in the late 70s, around the 3 million Adventists, something like that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, most of our sales were just in North America.
Yeah.
A few books would go elsewhere. Some would go to England. I don't know how many ever went your direction.
Yeah.
So the biggest market was right there in North America, and that's a pretty small market for 3 publishing houses feeding, 20 to 30 new books each.
Yeah.
Every year.
What were the 3 publishing houses?
Okay, there was Southern Publishing in Nashville.
Yep.
There was Pacific Press in California.
Yep.
And then the Review and Herald in Tacoma Park.
Right. Did Neil Wilson ever produce a book himself? Did he publish?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah. Did you have anything to do with was it Mary Kay De Silva? She wrote that book. In Australia, it was called Now, but I think in America it might have had. Was it called Sunlight or?
Oh.
A different.
Yeah. No. Mary Kay worked for Pacific Press.
Yeah.
I got to meet her actually one time.
Oh, tell me about it.
It was just a casual kind of thing. The poor lady went through a lot of difficulty there at Pacific.
Yeah, with the pay.
Yes.
She was going to take them
She
to
went
court.
in, as I understand it, she went into the general manager, who I think then was Lynn Boner, if I recall correctly. And she said, my husband isn't working. I'm the sole breadwinner. I would like to get paid as head of household. And also, I'm doing as much and the same work as my colleague over here, Max Phillips. And so I feel that I should get the same pay as he. And Lynn Boner said to her, as long as I am the general manager here, no woman will ever get equal pay with a man.
Wow.
Wrong thing to say.
Have you seen that in writing somewhere, or has that become a bit of a story?
Well, I don't know. That was at least word of mouth.
Yeah, because you've recollected her exact reasoning, that both those reasons, the she was the head of the household for a while, and her colleague was getting more than her.
Yeah.
So that fired her up, didn't it? And she
did.
was going to take them to court, but they settled out of court.
Yeah, you know, she thought for a year or two, she thought that Elder Neil Wilson, was on her side.
Oh.
When he would visit the area there at the publishing house, he would actually sit down and eat with her, you know. But she discovered to her horror later, he was not on her side.
Interesting. He was gaining information.
I don't know what he was doing.
He was on a recon. When it was settled out of court, do you have any idea of the amount that was?
No, I don't.
Did she stay on as an employee, or did she leave after that?
That's a good question, Peter. I am not sure. I know she ultimately left, but when and how soon afterward, that I do not know. But I think it was relatively soon.
That book now, at least in Australia, had a huge impact in the early 80s on readers. I've got a copy here somewhere, and it still puts me into the greatest fear mode possible. Do you think the kind of end of times that she spoke of are the end of times that Adventists still preach?
You know, that lately I have not heard much at all about end of times, really. It's been, you know, it used to be such a hot topic. At Southern Publishing, we published one by Penny Estes Wheeler about end times. At the same time, we published another book. Oh, it was under a pseudonym, and I'm not coming up with her pseudonym name, and I better not mention her real name. I think she's still alive. So we had two of those, end time books at that point. We had Sunlight, also by June Strong.
Yes,
which was the sharing book of the year.
Okay, so that wasn't the Mary Kay one with a new title. That was a separate.
That was a separate one.
Okay.
Yes. And I haven't seen much now. At Pacific Press for many years, Marvin Moore, who was one of their editors there, was very big on end time events. And I think he has still been going around, I don't know, at least North America, doing seminars on, I think it's the Book of Revelation or Daniel and Revelation or something, and last day events. But I have not heard much at all being said about that anymore.
When you were a boy, were you born into the Adventist church?
Yes. Yes, my dad was an Adventist preacher. And I had twin uncles who were Adventist preachers.
And were you, as a young boy, worried about the close of probation and running to the hills and the times of trouble?
There were times, yes, about that. But you know, one of the things I remember most, Peter, was my fear of Catholics. If we were parked, if I was parked, in my dad's car in the back seat, and I saw two nuns walking by, I'd fall to the floor, try to hide.
Yeah.
And later, when I was a pastor for the 6 years in Massachusetts, the pastors I got along best with were the Catholic priests.
How did you go from being scared to death? What was the transition where you then became quite comfortable?
Yeah, well,
comfortable with Catholic.
I guess the first real occasion, and I don't remember if this was in New London, Connecticut, or Providence, Rhode Island. I think it might, I don't know. Some visitors were in my folks' home, or I think it was my parents' home, and one of the ladies was, well, we'll call her Sister Sarah for lack of a better name, but was a nun, and she was a real person, you know, wow, a delightful person, and then getting to work with the priests and the ministerial associations, that was a good experience for me.
But yeah, we were raised to fear the mark of the beast represented with Catholicism and Sunday worship. And was there a time period where you started to question some of the Adventist kind of doctrines and thoughts, particularly around the investigative judgment and sanctuary doctrines?
Probably, you know, when I was in college, I was very conservative, Peter. You know, Herb Douglas. I don't know how familiar people in Australia are with Herb.
Yeah,
Herb Douglas came to be the head of the theology department at AUC, Atlantic Union College, and I was a relatively new student there, ministerial student, and I thought he was the most liberal person in the world. And that shows you how conservative I was at that point. And actually, you know, later, Herb and I became kind of competitors as editors, acquisitions editors and all. But we always got along well, always admired each other. And then we always had a nice relationship, even though somewhere along the way our theological ships passed in the night, you know. So I did have a course at Atlantic Union College from Dr. Douglas. It was, what did he call it? Biblical eschatology or New Testament eschatology or something like that. And he opened my eyes quite a bit with that.
Right.
I thought quite progressive, actually. And I came to appreciate him after taking a few classes from him. And from there, as a pastor, I decided to do some more on my own research on last day events and biblical eschatology, and how do you relate Old Testament prophecy with New Testament emphases. I think I produced some sort of manuscript or something at the time. It was never anything that you could publish, you know, didn't know how to write at that point. But I think there is when I started seeing some shifting in my own thinking. And then when we moved to Nashville, Tennessee, I got acquainted with a number of the theology, the New Testament scholars and Old Testament scholars who were working on a PhD at Vanderbilt University. And we spent a lot of quality time together, a lot of Sabbath afternoons and Saturday evenings and all. And one person particularly, John Jones, who was also at the seminary when I was there, by the way, but then had done a stint or two of mission service. He was sharing with me some of the things he was learning at Vanderbilt in areas of New Testament and that kind of thing. And helped me a tremendous amount in opening my mind to new ideas and thoughts that I hadn't thought about, you know. But John was always kind and always, you know, not overbearing, and so it helped me a whole lot. And a few years later, when I was looking for book manuscripts, I was at Andrews University, and I had my first appointment ever with Leona Running. She was the Hebrew and Greek teacher there at the seminary, known as quite a scourge among the the students. And so I was visiting with her, and you know, she was the goddess of the seminary.
Right. What was her name again?
Leona Running.
Right.
And she knew, like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 ancient Near Eastern languages and everything. You know, quite an amazing woman.
Is she still alive now?
No, she's not.
Right, right.
And, I had been used to talking to all the professors at the seminary, and it was fine. Walk in, oh, hi, Ken, or they always insisted, they said, oh, well, call me by my first name, whatever. I went in there and my mouth was as dry as cotton. I could barely talk because here I was in the presence of the goddess of the seminary. And she asked, well, where did you get your education? And so I said, I was kind of kidding. I said, well, John Jones University. And she immediately thought of Bob Jones University. No, Dr. Running, not Bob Jones University.
Not that
And
Jones.
so we talked a little bit about John because she had helped him with his French and with his Greek and his Hebrew and all that. So,
I love those kind of conversations that it sounds like you had with John. And
he
one
was
of the
always
things,
inspiring.
one of the things I'm loving about the little community that's growing up within the podcast here on the Facebook group is there's such a variety of people with very deep thoughts and beliefs, and there's some really interesting conversations, and I love that. I remember personally growing up around Avondale. My father was a lecturer there at Avondale College, and we loved that sense of camaraderie. Well, I was a bit younger than the generation that were part of the whole Ford and leaving and feeling too scared to talk about their thoughts anymore. But I remember walking around campus and vividly remember, people huddled in groups Sabbath afternoon, and I'd kind of walk past and they were talking theology and beliefs and ideas, and this would have been, 79, 80. Absolutely. I love that stuff. I love it. But by the time I was then old enough to participate, all those guys had left the church, and in Australia we lost upward of 180 ministers within a few years. But Harry Dallas is
necessary, Peter.
Yeah, this is what I want to chat a little bit about,
Necessary.
Yeah. If we can just talk a little bit back to Neil Wilson just prior to the Glacier View episode.
Okay.
I was interviewing Dr. Lyndon Rogers, who's a much loved lecturer at Avondale now. I think he's retiring this year. A fascinating interview. I'd love you to join the group if you wanted to down the track. I'll send you a link. Just go and watch his interview. It's fascinating. And towards the end of it, he shares part of a letter that was written from Neil Wilson to, I think, Pearson, the former president.
Yeah.
And in it, he was talking about, I need to get it to quote it exactly, but I just forgive me if I'm a little bit wrong, but he was talking about Des Ford, the looming problems over the sanctuary investigative judgment, and he was pretty clear to Pearson that for him this was an issue about the questioning of the authority of Ellen G. White more than the doctrinal issues and things, and that really then put everything into perspective for me as to what then went down next with Glacier View. And when I was interviewing Dr. Bill Johnson, he was saying that his impression was that Neil had really said, look, this is the line in the sand, this is your last conversation about it, and then we're not going to talk about it again. Which probably rings true to your memory of his kind of personality. So let's go back to that period, because I want to talk a little bit about just before Glacier View and then just after it, and the fallout of it, and how maybe things could have been done a bit differently. Just to get your perspective on some of the things. So in 1976, there was a fascinating gathering where they did talk a lot about this kind of thing, and in many ways it was kind of the building up of Glacier View. I've just forgotten the name of the conference, but that then led to Des Ford kind of I think really trying to press the point that he'd discovered many Adventists who don't have that sense of assurance of salvation. The thrust of what Des was doing, really, was saying, no, I think there's a way we can feel very assured of our salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And that led him, I think, to being invited to do the famous forum meeting in 1979. Were you at that one? There was tapes
No.
sent around the world apparently soon after and
No,
set
I
the
was.
world on fire. Tell us, before we launch into Glacier View, tell us a little bit about your memories of, you probably heard the tape at least, or your thoughts of that session that...
No, I understand that in some ways, um, Des was not interested in really pushing some of his ideas as much as I think what you were mentioning. There was someone who was agitating on one. I really don't know the historical background there, and so he wanted to deal with that. And I think you're right about the assurance of salvation. I had an elderly church member in Massachusetts, Haverhill, Massachusetts, who was one of the pillars of the church. You know, she had been an Adventist for 1,000 years, kind of thing, you know. And she told me when I was visiting in her home, I have no idea that I will ever make it into the kingdom, into heaven. I will just not be there. And my own mother, who was raised an Adventist and, you know, pastor's wife, had told me the same thing. I have no hope of ever making it to heaven.
Wow.
It's that's sad.
Very sad.
Sad. And so Des hit something there. He hit on something. Des knew where the hot buttons were.
Yeah.
And he knew how to push them. But that was a very I think that was probably one of the big motivating factors that was fueling Des's own thinking.
Yeah.
Someone recently, I think, said something about they thought that he was afraid of the judgment, and this is how this had evolved, and so he came to the point where he understood, no, it's not something to fear. I don't know. I've been in his home, had a meal there in California, but I don't know that kind of background about Des.
Yeah, I think from what I gather, and I've met him, had met him a few times. I mean, growing up, he was obviously a lecturer here when I was a little boy. I got to interview him for the podcast before he passed, and he very strongly pushes that assurance of the gospel.
Yes.
And many people that have written into the podcast and to the Facebook group talk about how Des kind of helped shift the fear for them to an assurance.
Yes.
So I think hopefully his legacy will be of a man that really brought that assurance into people's lives.
I hope so.
Neil, for some reason, didn't want to kind of bring that idea onto the platform. Why do you think that was? Like, you know, if we've established that Ellen White was kind of, he didn't want to lose her authority, was it because he really felt that the church politically needed to rally around the great controversy view of Ellen White's sanctuary and keep it there, or would the church would fall apart and the money would be lost? Or what was his what do you think was his agenda?
Well, first of all, I don't know.
Yeah. As I asked that, I thought, silly question.
Neil never confided in me. I have been in the inner sanctum kissing the golden ring for something I had said and done, but we never got into that aspect. But I think a lot of our administrators, and I don't say this in a negative sense, they see their mission, and probably rightfully so as administrators, to keep the church going. And so we'll compromise when we can. We will not compromise otherwise. What may be divisive for me may not be divisive for someone else. So we're going to try to somehow work through this. I will stomp on whatever I think is going to be too detrimental. Um, I don't, you know, I think that, and I think also in Ted's mind, there's this also. Though I think early on, when he was first being interviewed at the GC World Session, when he was being elected, didn't he say something to the point that if it had to be, he would be willing to divide the church or something, something along that line.
And I think somewhere there, someone even points a number. We'd be happy to lose, I think,
Oh boy.
either 700,000 or 70,000. I can't remember. Someone watching today will be able to share the correct quote there.
As long as we can get down to the 144,000, yes.
Well, Ellen White even talks about young people, only 1 in 20 are going to see Jesus.
Yeah.
How do people reconcile the writings that she had where she said that and the other writings that were very focused on righteousness by faith?
Yes.
How do you reconcile that when, because you're an author and a book editor, and you see the big picture of people's writings. None of us want to be judged by things we said 40 years ago.
Exactly.
To what we've said last week. But had she really changed those thoughts by the time she left the mortal coil?
I think she did. In my view, I believe that a person whom we would want to call a prophet, depending on how, of course, you want to perhaps define that, but I don't think that means they are set in concrete in their thinking, that God whispers everything in their ear, word for word, that they cannot then change. And I think there's good evidence that Ellen White grew just like the rest of us have grown theologically, spiritually, whatever. And I appreciate that of her. If she had been totally on that works end of things, what was it, years ago, she wrote a letter to her 2 little boys and told them that they needed to obey the people who were taking care of them, because God doesn't love bad children, naughty children. That's devastating.
Yeah.
And later, I recall finding a statement from her where she basically said the opposite. And so again, I think she was able to progress, and I think that has been the secret of Adventism, the spirit of Adventism, that we can talk, we can grow, we can compare ideas. That happened so much in our early years, formative years, and I covet that for nowadays.
Yes.
We couldn't do that again and have this, I wish that had even happened at Glacier View. But that wasn't the mood, that wasn't why we were there, I suppose. But we weren't there to discuss.
Yeah.
We were there to defend the faith once delivered to the saints.
Yeah. It seems like the church every 30 or 40 years comes to like a different crisis point, but with it ruminating about the same kind of thing. And for some reason, the admins always win and hand the ball back to a more historic kind of team. And you think
wait till you talk to George Knight. He will know more about this kind of thing historically. I'll tell you.
You'll have to email me some difficult questions to ask him later. But like the famous 1919 conference where the minutes were lost until the mid-70s.
Exactly.
If Adventists kind of really said, look, okay, oops, here's another one of these moments, what can we do differently this time? So we had Glacier View. I think we're coming up to a Glacier View 2 in with the compliance document and things like that very soon.
Yes.
What we haven't even talked about Glacier View yet, but what kind of things do you think we could learn to not do this time around? Because it seems to be heading towards the exact same kind of scenario. The headship, the global manipulating, the black and white.
And there are several really key issues right now that our church is having to deal with. A couple of years ago, or I think a year or two ago, I made a list of some of what I thought were some of the key ones that are going to have to be resolved one way or another, I think.
Yeah.
or at least discussed in a camaraderie, in a way of yes, we're looking for truth. Let's love each other. Let's be kind. And I don't know.
Because what tends to happen in this loop, and I got to a point of frustration because I was young enough to and old enough to maybe see two in my lifetime, and to be old enough the first time around to go, what on earth's going on here? And then seeing it again and thinking the same pattern is happening, but people aren't knowing or noticing until it's too late. They just let it happen. And
then there's this push in certain of our circles of, we must get back to historic Adventism.
Yes.
But what is that? See, I see historic Adventism as let's sit down and talk about these things, study God's word together, and then hug each other on the way out.
Exactly. You and me are on the same page. We break bread together after we've had a robust conversation.
Yeah.
So let's dip into Glacier View. Set the scene for us. You were one of the, did they call them delegates, or what was the official title of people that were there?
I'm not quite sure what the official title was, but yeah, I was one of them.
So tell us what led up to it. Paint the scene for us. How many people? Where was it? How did you get invited to go?
Glacier View was the youth camp in Colorado, up in the mountains. Lovely setting. I had also been there, I don't remember if it was before or after, there was a World Editorial Council that took place there too. And just a wonderful setting. The facilities are rustic, but not crude. Quite comfortable there. Scenery's just gorgeous in the mountains up there. I tried the other day to see what was the percentage of scholars versus administrators who were, quote, delegates there. Delegates I guess is as good a word as any, Peter.
Let's use it.
So I've done this counting twice, and it depends. Is an if the administrator had an advanced degree, does that make him a scholar or not?
Yeah, interesting.
So I went through twice. So the first count was that 56% of the 200 or 100, what was it? What was the total number of people there? 129. Of that total, about 56% by my first count were administrators, and these were the hard and dry, really hard-nosed, in a good sense, administrators.
Yeah, but potentially following Neil's guidance?
Yeah. They probably wouldn't want to admit that, but yeah. And then today, I counted again, because I thought, well, some of these people whom I might have said were scholars really were more in the administrative end of things.
Yes.
So I recounted, and I ended up with 69% of the people there as administrators. And so either way, the majority were administrators. The minority were the intellectuals, the scholars, systematic theologians, Old Testament scholars, New Testament scholars. So in some ways, the playing field was already tilted.
Yeah.
Administrators have that concern about preserving the church and preserving the order. The prophets, on the other hand, want to stir things up. So it was very much tilted toward the administrators. The first night I was there, I roomed with Kenneth Holland, who was the editor of These Times in Nashville. I didn't include him as a scholar. He was more in the administrative end of things. And the other roommate was someone I had never met before, and I'm pretty sure it was Elder E.S. Riley. And I think at that point, I think he had come from Canada, but I think before that, he had been in the Southern Union or something as union president or something. And so here we are in this little room. I was as I recall, I was on the upper bunk because I was the younger of all of them. I was a little more limber at that point than I am today. And Elder Riley was complaining, why are we spending all this money? And I heard that from other administrators. Why are we here? We know what needs to happen.
Wow.
We know Des is wrong, and he's ruining the church, and we shouldn't spend all this thousands and tens of thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to have all these people come from all around the world to this little junior camp, youth camp in Colorado, when all you have to say is, get Des out of here.
Wow, that's a fascinating observation.
Unfortunate. So the mood, Peter, was
that's very interesting. I haven't heard that perspective before. For some reason, I wrongly assumed that it was more a gathering of the scholars and the theologians. No.
The first day, the pattern was set on our first day. Of course, we got there the night before.
Yeah.
Mornings were spent in breakout sessions, and we were already assigned to different groups. I was assigned to, I was assigned to a group that was chaired by Elder Wernick, who was at the GC at the time.
Sorry, your voice cut out there, Elder
Wernick.
Right.
I don't know if you are acquainted with him or not.
No.
And and the assistant chair, or whatever you want to call it, for convener or whatever for this little breakout group, was Elder C.D. Henry, again from the General Conference. And there were seven groups, seven groups. And here we are in this little room. How many of us were there? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, about 16 of us,
right,
give or take, in this little room, group 7. Well, Elder Wernick was a day late, so Elder Henry was chairing this little session on our first day. And as I recall, the first thing out of Elder Henry's mouth, and I always appreciated him, the first thing out of his mouth was, well, folks, we know why we're here. We're here to defend the faith. That was it.
Wow. And get rid of Des.
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I appreciate these insights. So did you then kind of have some conversations with people that were more on the same page as you after these meetings? Did you kind of gather together over by the bubbler and say, man, what did you think about that?
Actually, you're right on, Peter. After dinner, the noon meal, there was about an hour between when we were done eating and when the afternoon session was going to meet, the plenary session. And a group of us, and I don't remember how many or even who they were, but there was a small group of us that would meet in one of the dorm rooms or lodge rooms or whatever you want to call it. Mm. And the topic was, okay, what happened this morning in your group?
Yeah.
What did you discuss? What was the attitude? Is there anything that we can do on the floor this afternoon in the plenary session to help steer things in a different direction? Clearly, these were not administrators. These were more the scholars, and how I was invited, I'll never know. But I was part of the group.
Well, you had a prestigious job description.
I guess. And so it was very interesting. And we met every day. Every day after we ate, we would meet in this room. And
You can't remember any of the names of this little subversive group?
It's probably Ray Cottrell was one of the people there.
Wow.
I think sometimes Jack Travancha was there. But yeah.
What were people like Bill Johnson doing at the time? Were they wandering around the different groups trying to bring harmony, or?
Well, let's see. I think he was in one of these groups.
Would you say that these little mini groups were chaired by the more politically minded administrators?
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
in every instance.
They were almost 70% represented and 100% steering.
Group one, chair, L.L. Bach. He was my conference president for a while. Group two, Charles Bradford, administrator. Group three, Duncan Eva. Knew him fairly well. Group four, Hackett, Elder Hackett. I knew Elder Hackett from the time I was in third grade, probably, Group five, Richard Hamill. Group six, M.C. Torkelson. And group seven, where I was, Elder Wernick. So these were all chaired by administrators.
Yeah, boy, these are gems of insights that you're giving us today, Richard. I really appreciate that. Because a lot of people have not been able to recount necessarily what was happening from this perspective. So we need more. Give us some more information. You'd have those groups, and this is over a 7-day period.
What was it? Yeah, it actually, I think, ended up a little longer than Elder Wilson had expected. Because I remember he gave us a little speech toward the end. Hey, don't think you can leave now yet. You ain't gonna leave now.
The committee
have more work to do, brothers.
The committee hasn't quite voted the way I want you to vote.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna give you the opportunity to vote again. Look, I'm going to jump a little bit here within this week to probably one of the defining moments. But so you'd have your morning meetings, and then you'd have a group. So they're your little group meetings, and then you'd have a full gathering in the afternoons. Is that right?
And in the evening.
And the evening. So there's 2 big meetings a day.
Yes.
And what was the tone of the big meetings? What was who were the speakers up the front that you recall?
At some of them, I think in the afternoon meetings, some of them, even Des made a presentation.
Right.
And I'd like to get back to that a little bit, Peter.
Yeah.
In the evening meetings, they were more research papers done by some of the scholars into various aspects of issues that Des might have addressed. He had that huge, how many page? I have it right here. It's like
the 1,000-page or 996 or something.
I didn't take a poll, but I'm willing to guess that most of the people there, especially the administrators, had never read it.
I've heard.
There was a lot of material to go through.
Yeah. I've heard that claim.
Okay.
What an amazing document. Jill has, I think, divided it now into 3.
Oh.
She can let me know I think she's watching today.
Bless her heart. Well, hey Jill, thank you. She and Des gave me a meal out there at Pacific Union College years ago. So.
She is lovely. And I think she's watching today, and if she is, she can let us know the answer to
Yeah.
to that. So yeah, if she has divided it up into three separate books,
Mm.
um, and like you say, their minds were made up before they turned up, really, and there was no need for them to read the document.
Exactly. Plus, and to be charitable toward the administrators, um, they didn't have time to slog through, read
Mm.
carefully. You know, I can't say I read it word for word, but I went through it. But they
Yeah,
didn't have time to do that. They had too many other things that were clamoring for their
yeah,
attention. So I don't want to be harsh on them,
yeah.
Peter.
Jill has just written, yes, I have published a 3-volume version of the Glacier View
Okay.
manuscript. It's on Amazon, the new version. So
Okay.
that's good to let people know about that.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to just jump to the 20-point document, or the statement, or whatever it has become
Yeah.
known.
Yeah.
What do you refer to it as?
I don't refer to it. I haven't even seen it since I had to get it out
Yeah, just to refresh your
because of
memory.
our discussion was going to be here.
So,
Uh,
let's just say we don't need to dig into the depth of the document, but we note that Des said, "Yep, I can live with that. I can
yeah,
go along with that."
yeah,
This would have been a nightmare answer that Neil wouldn't have expected, because he would have gone, "Oh,
yes.
hang on, if he's going to go along with it, we've got to keep him in the church."
Yeah, right, right.
So, what were your thoughts then? When was the document introduced? When did Des agree with it? Did people vote on that and say, "Good, end of the week, let's all go home now"? And what happened
Well,
next?
yeah, that's where it gets very foggy for me.
Mm,
I know they had the special group it was a relatively small group. Bill was on that group, Bill Johnson. They came up with this document. Uh, it did change our vocabulary from investigative judgment to what? Pre-Advent judgment. Um, I suppose we voted on it, but I don't remember. I
yeah,
really don't
some
remember.
say that it wasn't even voted on,
I don't
but
know.
I'm not sure. Jill,
Yeah.
I think Jill took some quite detailed notes of the week, and we're going to be interviewing her later
Uh,
in the series.
Good. You know
Um,
who took a lot of notes?
who?
Ray Cottrell,
Right.
who had been, an editor and a man I admired greatly.
Yeah.
He had a stack of index cards, 3x5 index cards, and every meeting he was in, he wrote in shorthand what was said
Wow.
at
Oh,
those meetings.
boy, that is a
Now, of
gold
course,
mine.
Ray is no longer with us,
Yeah.
but I'm confident that those cards must be in the library at Loma Linda University.
I wonder if anyone's published them at all as a
I don't know.
document.
Actually, and Ray also, again, he told me this. He wrote a earth-shaking manuscript on the Book of Daniel that was never published,
Wow.
and it has to be there somewhere. Ray memorized the Book of Daniel in Hebrew,
Oh my goodness.
and when he would go out for his morning walks, he would go through verse by verse, word by word in Hebrew,
Mm.
analyzing what was being said.
He and Bill Johnson would have had some interesting conversations, because Bill is an expert on Hebrew, isn't he?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
this Bill's in the book of Hebrews. Cottrell was in the language of
the
Hebrews.
language, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
see. I see what you're saying. So
yeah.
he was learning Daniel in the
In the
Hebrew
original
language,
language.
whereas Bill was focusing on the book of Hebrews. Sorry,
Yeah.
I misspoke. Um,
Bill's a great person. I
oh
have
yeah.
always
In
admired him.
fact, I just got in the mail literally a couple of days ago. I'll just do a quick open. I just tore it open. Um,
Ah,
Bill, it's from Bill and his wife. They sent
Lily.
me this. Here we are, from Loma Linda, and it came in the mail the other day. I haven't opened it. I tore it open this morning. Let's do a reveal, because I think it's a book. And
Aha.
here we go. They've sent me a copy of.
Ah, Okay, good.
Adventism. So
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
I cannot wait to read that. I'll put it on my list of books to read. I've actually this morning ordered a couple of your books as well from Amazon, which we'll talk about later on. I'm looking
Oh,
forward to getting those as well.
you know, I have some on Kindle.
Oh,
I have about 5 or 6 or 7 on Kindle.
available from Amazon that I could just download.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Well, look, I
They
might.
never saw they never saw the light of day on paper, but
I
and
will.
because I could publish myself on Kindle, I could say what I wanted.
Exactly. The freedom of publishing is so different now.
and
So let,
and you, Peter, you can't imagine the money I get from those things. Every quarter, I get maybe 10 cents or 25 cents.
I was giving my recording "Sleep, Baby, Sleep," Peter Dixon on
Yeah.
Spotify. A little plug there again, if people want to go and listen for free. My royalties on that for a year were about $24. So yeah, we get to have a freedom now with the way publishing is, but there's way less money in it.
Yeah.
So let's go back into Glacier View, and
Yeah.
whether or not it was voted on, the 20-point document made a splash. Des said, "Yeah, I'm happy to chat about it." I'm putting a challenge out there to viewers. I know there's some really amazing people that watch this show and can dig deep. Find out the Ray Cottrell notes that he took, if someone could find that out. And also the manuscript that was never published, you think might be available in Loma
Yeah.
Linda. So he agrees to this. What were you and your friends thinking at this stage? Like, oh, hang on, there's a bit of light at the end of this tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the document, as I recall, and again, I have not read it carefully for many, many years, was a compromise, and probably as good a compromise as could have taken place under those circumstances.
Hmm.
And so I think it is not, I would not want anyone to downplay its significance. One can only do so much. The scholars of the church, even those that wouldn't necessarily agree with Des on every point,
Hmm.
but were, sympathetic because we are a band of brothers, of scholars, would try to do their best, but there was not a lot that they could do to influence things.
Right.
And at some point, let me get back, Peter, to the little individual dorm room discussion,
Yeah.
and then that afternoon in the plenary session.
Well, I think we can go to that now.
Okay.
Tell us a bit about that now.
Well, only once, I think, did we invite Des to be with us. We wanted to do this totally independent of his influence. So if anybody ever asked or whatever, hey, Des had nothing to do with it. He didn't organize it. He was totally ignorant of what we were doing. We did call him in one time, and I don't remember all the details of that. But anyway, this was getting on down toward the end of our week there. We were sitting there talking about what we had discussed that morning, and in walked Jack Provencha. And Jack said, folks, I'm paraphrasing, of course, I just got back from talking to Elder Wilson, Elder Palmenter, and Des. And I think this afternoon in our meeting, I can bring these three people together and we can come to an amiable conclusion. Wow. Well, of course, with this little group, we always had prayer, but we sure had an earnest one after Jack left that day. So that afternoon, when it came discussion time, Jack raised his hand and Neil Wilson gave him the floor. And of course, some of us knew exactly what was going to happen, and we're there praying our little hearts out. And Jack said, you know, I'm a physician. My whole life has been spent trying to bring healing to people. And I would like to help bring healing to people here today. And he was pretty sure that he had the agreement from Wilson and Parmenter as well as Des that they would all agree, that they would lay the cudgels down. They would not, Des wouldn't, you know, run around emphasizing certain hot topics, etc. And so after his little speech, Jack turned to Neil Wilson and said, now, Elder Wilson, if we can get you, Elder Parmenter and Dr. Ford to agree here that, you know, Des will not agitate some of these issues. We aren't saying they're right or wrong. We're just saying, you know, we'll let them sleep for a while anyway. Would you be willing to whatever? And he was sure he had Neil's okay to say yes. Instead, he said no.
There, publicly.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that ended it. That ended it. It was quite dramatic, quite dramatic. Another time in this plenary session in the afternoon, Des had read a paper. I think it was something on Hebrews 9 and where did Jesus go on his ascension? Was it the holy place or the most holy place? And what does it say in Hebrews 9? And he had picked this up, the concept up in a class at the seminary taught by Edward Heppenstall. And it just so happened that I also had taken that same class years later from Dr. Heppenstall. And at this plenary session, Dr. Heppenstall was across the aisle from me, and I think it was like one row up or one row back. And so Des had made his point that according to the book of Hebrews, Jesus entered the presence of God. So that was the most holy place.
Mm.
And he turned and looked at Dr. Heppenstall, who had clued him in years before on this at the class, and said, isn't that right, Dr. Heppenstall? And Dr. Heppenstall, who was always a very combative professor in the classroom, said nothing. Or if he said something, it was nothing that would have supported what he had taught in the class. And poor Des, you know, there went the air out of his tires on that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, there's some defining moments that you're putting a spotlight on for us today. Some liberal leaders or scholars, academics, in some ways are trying to rewrite a bit of history by saying Des kind of was too dogmatic and this is my way or the highway. But every time I've researched deeper, he wasn't wanting to do the forum in 1979 as combative. He'd been asked to share his ideas in what he thought was a forum where they could just talk ideas. Glacier View comes along and he's saying, look, I just want to bring salvation and the assurance, and let's look at the Bible. There's a few things here that I'm not trying to be pedantic about, but it says Christ went straight to the holy place. And then he said, and I'm willing to compromise and sign your 20-point document. I'm not that impressed when people say he was this kind of militant, it's got to be my way or the highway. I don't get that from him at all.
there were times there that I thought that maybe, and there were other times, you're right, no. No.
I think the times where you think that, where people have, and I have too, more where he was just passionate about,
Yes.
look what I've found that says
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
The Bible is the one that's put the flag in the soil, not Des. It's a bit like Luther hammering that.
Yeah, the 95 Theses. Yeah.
95 Theses. You know, we could call him a little bit dandy. So after that kind of moment, and you're there very close to Heppenstall, literally in the audience.
Yeah.
And you could almost feel the wind going out of the sail. What day was that in the week? Was that middle of the whole session?
Yeah, I don't remember that, Peter.
Did
But vividly, I can still see old Dr. Heppenstall over there, and I can still see Des up front, anticipating a little moral support from the old professor, from the seminary.
Yeah.
And as I said, in the seminary classes, Heppenstall was a fighter. I mean, he could pin you to the wall with a few questions. He liked the Socratic method. Now, brother, do you mean by that, you do? Well, then you believe then that, so therefore that, and by the time you're done, you're pinned against the wall like a butterfly,
I have discovered that that some people, when confronted with the alpha maleness of some of the administrators, their beta male comes running and skipping out. Yes, sir. No, sir. So tell us a little bit about the 10-point backup plan that Neil then wheeled out. Tell us a little bit about, because I interviewed Norm Young, and he was one of the people caught up in the 10-point plan statement. Had Neil, he's a master. Had he anticipated every possible outcome and had gotten these guys to write this up earlier and then brought it out, or did he suddenly go, hang on, we've got the 20-point, Des is agreeing to this, and called people in like Norm in that week?
Well, I don't know all the work that was done in the background, but I do understand that he had appointed, or somebody appointed, maybe we all voted it, I don't know, that this group get together. And so that was a special group that functioned there. I take it during the evenings or maybe after the lunchtime, noontime. I don't know. But it somehow they pulled off something that I really didn't think could be pulled off, because here Des is willing to agree.
Yeah.
And the administrators seem to be semi-happy, at least, Wow.
So was that then presented? What did Neil put that to a vote? Like at some point there was a Des is out of here moment. Where was that?
Yeah, they must have handed it out, for us to look at. I don't know if it was at an afternoon meeting or an evening meeting. Everything in the afternoon and evening was tape recorded.
Oh.
And it was put, Elder Wilson told us it will be put in the archives and it will not be available to anyone.
And that's been the case still to this day?
So I don't know. But after all these years, what is it, 40 years now?
40 years this August.
Yeah, hopefully all those tapes can be used by someone who's working on a doctoral dissertation somewhere at the seminary or wherever. It's not as an emotional a topic anymore. So let's get to it. Let's understand more about what was going on. Let's listen to the people who were presenting. Some, as I said, some of that was Des. Some were presentations of others who either disagreed or partially agreed or whatever, let's have someone mine this. Maybe
Yeah.
several people. Let's have people pick a topic. Well, my doctoral dissertation will be Hebrews 9, or where did Jesus go, or whatever.
Mine will be the cassettes hidden in the archives of Glacier View, from Glacier View.
Oh yeah.
I'm hoping that, and there's been interest already in this little series that's creating like a resource for future students to dig back into, and they can run with it to a greater degree than I am. So, and Jill will be able to confirm this because I think she was in on the meeting where there was Neil and a couple of others and Des, and he was asked could he go along with those 10 points.
Yeah, I'm sure Jill could remember that.
And
I do remember sitting, at least in one of the meetings, I think it was in the afternoon, and Des was reading one of his papers, as I recall. And I think I think they were pews in that chapel where we were meeting. And I think it was about 2 rows ahead of me, there was a man, he had his arm out on the back of the pew, the rail, or whatever you want to call it. And he was pounding it, and he was furious, and he was just really going at it. And I asked someone, who is that? And I learned that it was Elder Tallhurst, who.
Interesting.
And he was just banging. I mean, he was really into
what
it.
had stirred him up?
I don't remember what the topic was, but.
And it was during a meeting, or was this like a?
Yeah, it was during this meeting, and
Wow.
It was during something that Des had read or said in the discussion afterward, or what. And he was really, Elder Tallhurst was really, he was really exercised.
Well, both he and Keith Parmenter, and we've gone to great lengths in this series to highlight that we're all human. And Dr. Norm Young tells the story of when he retired. Athol Tolhurst retired just down the street in Kurrambong here, and they would eat together and go on walks together, and in many ways buried the hatchet. We're not trying to say people are bad people. We're just kind of speaking from a point of view of, they were motivated to protect the church for whatever reason, what was motivating them. And we know that back here in Australia we had a movement called the Concerned Brethren.
Oh yes,
which did influence. Yeah, very much so. All of the guys who signed the original document. So there was a document.
Okay.
Look, I know all these details, but they've just escaped my brain at the moment. But I think 16 to 19 pastors in Australia, all of whom ended up in Kurrambong here when I was a boy in their retirement years. Many of them I would bump into, have lunch with, enjoy a conversation with, be in the same church with.
Sure.
But very aware that they were quite robustly opposing Des Ford and the new theology. And I would often get criticised for long hair and playing rock music and things like that. And so they wrote this document. It just escapes me. Someone will write it in the messages here. And they signed it, the Concerned Brethren, and then all the names were listed.
Sure.
And the Standish brothers, who went on to, I think, greatly influence every single fundamentalist independent ministry that we have today by going to America, starting, is it Heartland University? And that inspired and influenced a whole new generation of concerned brethren.
Yes.
So the strand that runs from those men that have now all passed is very strong, very much alive. There's a magazine that comes out, I think, every 2 months called The Remnant Herald, which was started by these guys. It still comes out to this day. I get it. I'm a subscriber. Now the Standish brothers were the youngest of these guys. They were kind of the pastors who wrote the document, the letter, were I think late 60s, 70s, and they were both in their early 40s, I believe, and they took it upon themselves, and greatly sanctioned by the elders of the Concerned Brethren, to really get out there and shake the church up to bring it back to its true
Yeah.
roots. And they see questions on doctrine, which I'd love you to talk a little bit about if you can,
Wow.
as the ground zero to the modernization of the church and the bringing
Mm-hmm.
in of the new theology,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been
Mm-hmm.
very effective. I would say that they, in the end, with the current power and leadership at the top, they are now cheering that they have got their church back almost.
Uh-huh.
Where
Uh-huh.
I'm going with this is that they put a lot of pressure on Keith Parmenter and Athol Tolhurst,
Uh,
who were probably quite happy to accept the wisdom from the Concerned Brethren,
yeah.
and after Glacier View, they very much took it upon themselves to root out the new theology and the pastors and
Mm.
teachers to a degree that were
Mm.
supporting Des or being seen to support Des.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Harry Ballas, who is a member of this group, wrote a really interesting book where he interviewed many of the ministers that had left the church or been kicked out of the church. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
fantastic document if you ever get a chance to read it.
See, you really suffered there in Australia with the number
Well,
of
yeah, we
people.
had, like I said before, about 180 plus, and you think about that, their wives, the children. That's not even counting teachers and other people that were
Mm.
asked to leave or ferreted out.
Mm.
But in America, and I mean, per capita, it's not as much, but there was a couple of hundred people in America also
Mm.
rooted out and put pressure on. But because we're a smaller Adventist community, is smaller here, 180 pastors being
Yeah.
kicked out in a couple of years had a huge impact. My generation literally went from vibrant young pastors ministering to us and putting on great events to literally having, and I've said this many times, but Tuesday night table tennis once a month in the local Memorial Youth Hall, and,
Uh,
and we just wondered where they'd all gone. So my generation formed our own little kind of groups of
mm.
musicians and surfers, and we had no guidance or leadership.
Mm.
The youngest people leading
Wow.
us during the 80s were 50 plus.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
a couple of young people and people that were like Jim Zeideveld was a great influence on us, and he was a young pastor that hung
Mm.
around, and people like Lyle Heiss. And so I'm not saying there wasn't people around,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we went from a vibrant bunch of Adventists to none. So I'm kind of talking too much, but I wanted to set a bit of a scene here for what I want to talk to you about. And what were some of your thoughts on this purge of Adventists based on pressure that was given to people like Neil and Keith
Mm.
Parmenter and Athol Tolhurst? What are your
Mm.
thoughts on that loss and what could have been done at the time differently?
Yeah. We had something similar here under the administration of Elder Pearson, and that they were trying to get, for instance, the seminary professors to line up, and there was talk about some paper they were supposed to sign, some document of support or whatever. I know one person who kind of suffered with that was Jim Cox. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah,
Jim.
he came out to be president here at Avondale College.
Okay. Yeah.
around that time, so he might have been chipped off.
He was approached, I understand, and the big question I understand, and this is all second and third hand, but was is the Earth 6,000 years old?
This is back then.
Yeah,
Oh
this was
wow,
probably, yeah, this was in the 70s.
wow, because that's one of the compliance
Yeah,
document
yeah,
statements, isn't it?
yeah,
You have to believe
yeah.
that 6 to 10,000.
History repeats itself.
Oh,
And this talk about 10 or 12,000 years is kind of ridiculous because it's all based, a short chronology is really based on what Ellen White wrote. And she said about 6,000 years,
yeah.
and 10,000 or 12,000 is, I'm sorry, I'm not a mathematician, but that's not about
No.
6,000 years.
And you know, this is a salvation issue, has never been
Yeah,
said anywhere. Like,
yeah,
why make it such an important thing
yeah.
you have to believe?
Apparently they asked Jim about that. And poor Jim, he said, well, I'm a New Testament scholar. That's something the Old Testament scholars have to deal with. And I understand it didn't go over real well.
Oh, I like it.
uh, but Jim
The
was under a lot
yeah.
of fire and a lot of pressure back in the 70s at the seminary.
Well, he was banished to Australia, much like Ellen White was.
Yeah, poor fellow. I felt so bad for him.
Mm.
Rumor had been that he had gotten so bitter he left the church, but I was happy to read and learn that no, that had not happened, and I'm so grateful that he was able to. I had other friends, Jim and I were not close at all, but I had other friends who were much closer who suffered greatly. Southern Missionary College had a purge there. Was that in the 70s or 80s? McKee, the bakery man, my friend always called him the cookie man, uh, apparently had some students who were surreptitiously recording things that were said in classroom.
Yeah, that happened a lot here. A lot.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And some people there, some who I appreciated, were hurt very, very badly
Mm.
at the time. A little later, the same kind of thing happened at Walla Walla College, and I had some friends there who suffered greatly. I don't know how our loving Lord can look upon that kind of thing and put his stamp of approval on it. I'm sure it hurts. I'm sure it must tear him up inside. There's a lot that I'm sure that God sees that, if you and I saw everything that was happening on our globe, we'd go totally insane.
Mm.
How God can see it all, I don't know how he can see it and maintain his
Yeah.
sanity or mental integrity or emotional integrity. I don't know.
His divine mental health is being challenged.
Yeah, I think so. But that's another topic. But yeah.
How do you think you managed to avoid, because I'm sure that people like Neil Wilson and others would have taken note of you young liberal rebel
Yeah.
rousers. I bet they had a little list. In Australia, there was, I think Dr. Harry Ballas has got the document or somehow accessed it. There was actually a file on all of these young pastors and because people were sending in recordings and
Yeah.
and so they were often brought into the office in Sydney there, and questioned. How did you? So I'm sure that you were on a list somewhere. How did you avoid the purge?
Yeah, I am on the list today of. It's online. What is it? Corrupt Adventist leaders or some such thing. And those of us who are on there, I don't even know who is behind this, feel it's a wonderful testimony to our integrity that we are on this on this list.
Oh,
um,
I think I'm on that list too, from some music stuff.
the closest I came one time, it was after Elder Pearson had retired from being the president of the GC, excuse me, and I got a phone call from him, and he said, this was when I was still, I think I was still in Nashville at the time.
What year was this?
Oh, this would have been mid to late 70s, probably. I'm terrible with numbers, and that includes dates.
Pre Glacier View or after?
I don't know.
Around that time.
Yeah. It was after he retired anyway. And he said, Brother Coffen, I would like to sit down and talk with you sometime. And I knew from the tone of his voice that it was not going to be a pleasant experience, at least on my part.
Wow. Actually, it must have been after 1990, because he was still, someone wrote earlier that he was president up to 1990.
Well, if that's the case, then it was when I was in Review and Herald. But anyway, he died before he could get to me.
Did he allude to the topic that he wanted to talk about? You could just tell from the tone.
Yeah, they just needed to talk to Brother Coffen. I understand. Now let's put it this way. A number of years ago, just about the time Ted Wilson was going to be elected president of the GC, Pacific Press accepted a book of mine in which I took the biblical metaphors of sin and the biblical metaphors of salvation and matched them. So if sin is an illness, then salvation is healing.
Mm.
If sin is a broken relationship, then salvation is a restoration of relationships. And so I had never seen those, put together.
Mm.
So the whole book was about these metaphors.
Mm.
And Pacific Press accepted it for publication, and they put it on a fast track because they wanted to have it ready for that summer's General Conference World Session. And somewhere, somehow, and all this is foggy because, of course, I wasn't there, they understood that Ted Wilson was probably going to be put in. And somewhere, somehow, apparently,
Oh dear.
Ted had given them a list of the books and authors that he did not approve of.
Wow.
And I was one of them.
Oh my goodness.
And so they killed the book project.
Oh,
They didn't ask for their advance on royalties back, so that was nice
that's
of them.
lucky.
Bought a few ice cream cones or something, after that.
$20 well spent.
So the book now I published on my own, and it is on Kindle now.
But what have you called it?
And it's something about metaphors. Anyway, metaphors is in the title.
In the title. Wow. They see themselves as some kind of keepers of the flame.
Yeah.
And I can imagine them on committees literally being judicial about who is allowed in and who's not allowed in to protect this flock over here. Have you ever thought about doing a paraphrase of the Great Controversy?
Oh.
and kind of, make it a little bit more appealing.
Yeah. This reminds me, while Neil Wilson was still General Conference president, we had published a book by Helmut Ott. I think we accepted it at Nashville, and I think though it got printed at the Review after the merger in 1980. And it was something about Ellen White and what she said about justification. And apparently Neil was not terribly happy with that book. And about the same time, Pacific Press had published a book, and I don't remember the title at all. I don't remember what it was about. And he was not happy with that book. And of course, these all went through book committees. You know, it was not an editor's decision. So Elder Wilson called a meeting to meet in the big boardroom adjacent to his general conference office. And a couple of us from the review were there. And by that time, the review was in Hagerstown, Maryland. So, you know, we were fine. Just a short hour or so drive, 90 minutes at the most. Pacific Press had 2 or 3 people there, as I recall. And of course, they had airline tickets that they had purchased from Idaho. So all of us got into this big room, and there were general conference secretaries and general conference vice presidents. And it was quite an auspicious group. And Neil got up and, you know, he gave his lengthy speech. And the rest of us were waiting because we knew we were going to have to defend why we published that terrible book. And when Elder Wilson was done, kind of looked over at all of us, you know, gathered around the table, stunned with him, whatever. And one of, I don't think it was Elder C.D. Henry, but one of the African-American vice presidents or secretaries or something raised his hand, and Neil recognized him, and he said, "Mr. Chairman, has the church taken an official stand on either of these topics?" What Pacific had written, you know, their book and our book.
Good question.
And Elder Wilson said, "No." And the good brother said, "Well, then why are we here?" We didn't have to defend anything.
Yeah.
The meeting dissolved. And Pacific Press guys, poor fellas, they had to figure out what they were going to do for the rest of the day because they couldn't change their tickets. So they had to spend another day or two there and go back on their round trip tickets, you know. And of course, we just had that little ride up to Hagerstown, Maryland.
I'm surprised Neil didn't try and steamroll and keep the meetings going and get them to reconsider their vote.
Oh, I'll tell you, that one just really took the wind out of his sails.
That's classic. Every now and again, there's a.
I was so relieved. I wasn't sure what I was going to say other than, well, you know, we had all these readers, evaluators read it, and they all, you know, 95 or whatever % of them said, "Yeah, let's do that."
Yeah. It's crazy. They try to protect. It's almost a question of free, and you must find this incredibly troubling in America, where it's suppressing freedom of speech. Can I turn to some statements and comments? My little monitor crashed, so I'm hoping that I haven't lost some of the important questions there. But there is a couple of things there, I think. Before I do that, is there anything you'd like to kind of share about the Glacier View experience that we haven't covered? Anything else you'd like to add?
Just to say that I was able to make some new friends there.
Yeah.
People who were there: Roy Adams, Jim Cox. I had known who Jim was, but I was never terribly close, but I got to know him better. Art Furch.
Yeah.
Jack Provancha. Lou Venden, I think, was there. I didn't check that one out to see if he was on the list. But, and there were several others. And it was just a nice experience. But these were all the scholars.
Yeah.
Not on the administrative side.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience in so many ways to see my church at work. Kind of disappointing in some other ways, of course.
Yeah.
Um, I still can't understand. Some people thought that Des was anti-Ellen White, and I can't imagine anyone stronger on
Yeah,
Ellen White than Des.
I
I
know.
mean, he
It's
could
ironic.
rattle her statements off and tell you it was on page such and such. Incredible.
Yeah.
Uh, poor
I think
man.
they
He
feared
just
that.
got bad press or something.
Yeah, I think they feared that he was going to do, I guess, what he eventually did was to do away with the concept of anything supernatural happening in 1844.
Yeah.
Maybe Neil kind of saw that potentially happening down the track and the impact it would have on people.
I don't know. I don't know.
Um,
Uh,
I know there was a good question that's disappeared, I think. Um, oh, no, it's still there. I'll just quickly go through some of these statements. And look, feel free to interrupt if you think of anything else you'd like to add. And after I've read these, I'd love to just ask you one more question, and then I want to just finish on chatting about you're finding really passionate with your books and your writing and this kind of thing.
oh.
So we've got here, someone asked about, can you guys expand the Ford-Heppenstall disagreement that led, it's hard to read, I need new glasses, that led to Neil going ballistic? I think there must have been something from that you were saying about the Heppenstall non-response.
Yeah.
Did
From
Neil
my
get upset
memory,
after that?
is that it deflated Des because Des expected Dr. Heppenstall to support his perspective on Hebrews 9, which, as I said, both of us had learned in Heppenstall's class at the seminary.
Yeah.
So I don't know about
Any
Neil
follow-up with
going
Neil, right?
ballistic on that, or I don't remember anything about that.
Another. I used to read the names, and now I just read in case they want to. It's on a public document, so but just in case they don't want to be mentioned, someone else has asked. I've wondered if Des ever asked Heppenstall why he went quiet at Glacier View.
Oh, wow. I would love to know that. Jill might know.
Well, yeah, the follow-up question is Gillian's been tagged into that as well.
Yeah.
Gillian's made a comment that Norm said the 10-point statement thing started on the Tuesday.
Okay.
What was the first day of the...
Oh, boy.
Was it a Monday or...
Do I have a...
So she's saying that Norm was being brought aside to do the 10-point, and I'm guessing that Neil already was now thinking if he goes for the 20-point, I'll be able to bring this onto the table, because I'm sure he won't agree with this one.
Okay, it started on Sunday night, August 10, and that was just a plenary session for everybody who made it there by then.
Just a big gathering.
And then it went through Thursday, the evening of Thursday, August 14. And then on the notes here, it said there was a possibility of continuing until Friday noon on August 15.
Okay.
And that may have been what Neil was talking about when he told someone, don't think you can leave yet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's going to go on a little longer. So if that was on the Tuesday, then
it's going to go on until I get what I want.
Yeah.
So Gillian also added, so the Tuesday is where Norm had been asked to kind of start compiling, and these others, I guess, for the 10-point.
Okay.
But the consensus, it was handed out after the consensus statement and on the Friday morning. The consensus statements were read out first, and Gillian says she was there, and they were voted on, and then the 10-point statement was read out after we had been asked to leave and wasn't voted on.
Okay.
Milton said he couldn't find a vote for either. That'd be Milton Hook, who's written
Okay.
a great book about it.
Hmm.
She said Athol didn't read the manuscript. He went taking photographs before Glacier View. Um,
Oh.
Making up, she also says, making up with Athol in the retirement years I mentioned might
Yeah.
have made Norm feel good, but when ministers were fired in the field by Athol, Avondale was silent at the time,
Oh boy.
and those men won't be impressed. It's this. It's an
Wow.
interesting thing. The silence thing has really troubled
Hmm.
me over the years. Um,
Hmm.
I recently was embroiled in a major controversy because I have been playing bush dances at Avondale College for 30 years. One every year for 30 years. And
Wow.
last year, one of the Conservatives, I've
Hmm.
had the ability to fly under the radar apparently because bush dances are so dangerous.
Oh yeah. Well,
And so anyway, there was a big expose of my bush dancing on a conservative. What was it called? Advent. Oh, something Advent. I can't remember offhand. But there were over 20,000 comments, and I was called a tool of Satan and all this kind of.
yeah. Oh dear.
But what got me the most was the millennials and younger Adventists were very
Yeah.
supportive of me
Uh-huh.
in public. And the leaders of the church and the liberal pastors and
Mm-hmm.
Avondale
Mm.
behind the scenes were very
Mm.
supportive. And I
Mm-hmm.
said to a lot of them, well, go and write it on that wall. Go and write it in the Facebook group where I've been attacked.
Mm.
And none of them did, and
Yeah.
that had a bit
Yeah.
of an impact on me.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm turning
As
this.
I recall, Peter, there was some unhappiness expressed that those two documents were handed out so late in the game, that there really was no opportunity for discussion
Mm,
other than
yeah,
nay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a tactic that kind of was used for the compliance document too, from what I'm gathering.
Mm.
Boy, isn't that troubling? Where those 6 unions were warned. I'm hoping the Norwegians and the Danish unions rebel. Come on,
Yeah.
guys. Another person has written about the list you were talking about. I'm on that list for being too gay friendly, they said.
Oh, okay.
Someone else has said preemptive censorship. I'm not sure what they were referring to.
Yeah, I was I think I was on that corrupt leaders or whatever. I think I was listed as being anti-Ellen White or something. I didn't believe in the spirit of prophecy or
Oh,
something along.
okay.
I think that's what it
Yeah.
was. Obviously, this person has no idea what some of us think.
No, yeah, they just want to. And the interesting thing is that they're winning. They've got the numbers now. People, Adventists have mistakenly seen this as a pendulum swing between traditional and liberal, like society has.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not. It's been a trajectory of conservatives wanting their church back and
yes,
liberals getting power and then dipping away.
yes,
They're
yeah, yeah,
retiring, they're dying.
yeah. That's
Um,
an interesting observation. Yeah.
um, Someone else has written historical facts are important, but it is the personal stories that give colour and make it interesting. I think they're commenting on valuing what you've said today. Another person has said, please ask Richard about his take on Des changing views, given that you, Richard, edited Des's first Daniel commentary.
Did I edit that? I
Uh,
know I was the book editor when we accepted it.
yes, so you might have been the editor
Yeah.
of the publishing house,
Um,
but not necessarily edited the actual work.
yeah. I don't. I have it in my office over here, but I will say yay or nay on that one. I do remember telling Des that I felt unhappy with his apotalismatic principle, because I felt that then there weren't enough guidelines to keep this on rails. That if you have the imagination and you can come up with another interpretation, fulfillment of some prophecy, fine. You know, oh, well, that's just an apotalismatic situation. And I've always wanted to stay, as someone who has dabbled in communication, I always, one of my fundamental beliefs now is that when God or the scriptural writers wrote, they had a contemporary audience in mind. Otherwise, they and God are wasting their time.
Right.
And so, I think Des was trying to kind of get around, you know, kind of admit that but this apotalismatic principle, you know, you could have different. Since then, I've come to the conclusion that prophecy, predictive prophecy, has the potential for being repurposed. So, as an example, Isaiah 7, where this baby's going to be born, he's going to be called Emmanuel, and this is going to happen within the lifetime of King Ahaz. This is a sign from God. Well, we get to the New Testament, and it's a sign of Jesus being here with us.
Interesting.
Okay, I don't see that as the original meaning in Isaiah, but I see it as repurpose. I have to thank my wife for that term. Repurposing that prophecy. And I think we also have a lot of examples, and I'm not a rabbinical scholar, but the rabbis were very prone to have all kinds of fulfillments of a particular passage of scripture or meanings, and they were all right.
Yeah.
And well, I don't like that, because then again, words mean nothing.
Yes.
But if things can be repurposed, and we can find something now significant, so I've been semi-converted.
I like that. And when people misuse that, they can use predictions out of context to confirm whatever they like.
Yes.
In fact, it's interesting. I've pondered those kind of things a lot. And when I reread Matthew a little while back, I thought, wow, the first 5 chapters of Matthew, before he gets to the Sermon on the Mount, are very much placing the gospel and the message of Jesus and Jesus himself into this confirmative kind of place.
Exactly.
He's saying, now because of this, Jesus fulfills this because you guys said that. So he's obviously speaking to his audience.
Yep. And that worked quite well back then.
Yes, yeah.
For biblical scholars today,
yeah, exactly. And in fact, a lot of the imminent end times kind of predictions, the apostles clearly thought Jesus was returning imminently in their time, in their lifetime.
Absolutely.
And Adventists have kind of repurposed that. I'm going to use this word now. Thank you, wife.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And this same theme, not only did Jesus believe it, but the same theme goes through the rest of the New Testament authors, and then through the Christians throughout the centuries and millennia since then.
Yeah.
I have a file in my computer hard drive of the statements, or some I didn't even do statements because it gets too bulky, but people throughout history who have been predicting Jesus is coming such and such.
Yes, constantly.
And it's incredible. It's been all the way through.
Yeah.
ever since Jesus. In fact, there was one, and I've never been able to verify this, but there was one statement back in, it was BC times when I don't know if I'm not even sure it was a Jewish writer, was saying that the end of time was coming then.
Yes.
So, it has deep roots.
It's I don't prepare questions, but as I've been thinking about George Knight coming on in a couple of days, I wanted to run something past him, which I'll run past you because I love how you think, and you might have some thoughts on it. If the Bible is so clearly saying don't predict a time, and even the apostles got it wrong, but if the Bible's clearly saying don't do that, and I need to think about this more, so it's good that I get to just kind of think out loud. How then can we look at 1844 if the very discovery of that date says, yes, there was a prediction that something happened that night on October 22, even though we shouldn't have been looking for it. Thank goodness we did follow that rabbit down that rabbit hole. How then do we repurpose it to justify the great disappointment when we shouldn't have even been looking there in the first place?
And maybe our pioneers in the 1840s were repurposing something already.
Yes.
Now, we will not go any further into that, but
You'll have to message me how I can better articulate that question, because in my head I'm thinking, boy, that sounds good, and then as I say it out loud, I'm thinking, I need to rephrase that a bit better.
I was sitting, I don't know, have you heard the name Sakai Kubo, New Testament scholar? He taught at the seminary.
Yes, I have.
Wonderful Christian gentleman. Probably the finest New Testament exegete our church has had for decades, maybe ever. He got out of the brethren's favor, so they put him in the seminary library. And I was sitting in his office, there in the little tiny office, just a little thing as I recall, like a closet, almost. And I asked him,
Wow.
He shocked me. I asked him, I said, what about the second coming? Jesus himself said he expected to come. And Sakai said, I'm quoting, he was wrong.
I love it. I love it. Oh boy, I wish our church political administrators could just say we were wrong.
Yeah.
We apologise to Des posthumously, but I fear
Sakai's boy was playing baseball there at the seminary in Berrien Springs and got hit in the head with a ball.
Oh.
Killed him.
Whoa.
And I think he was like, I don't know, 13 or 14, something like that.
Fabulous.
And one of the seminary professors came into Sakai's office, sat down in the chair in front of Sakai's desk, didn't say a word, but wept and left. And Sakai said that was the most comforting and the most meaningful response
he
had gotten to that terrible tragedy.
Yeah. Hey, I want to just wrap up a couple of things. And I'm wondering if I can get you back on again in a few months. And we'll be on to other things by then, but I love shooting the breeze with you.
Well, it's been fun. I didn't know what was going to happen, Peter, so...
there's just another question that's popped up. I think this person's just giving me a better way to articulate my question.
Mm.
How can we be so wedded to the date 1844 as being important when the date was determined by something that we're quite clearly counselled not to do? Thank you.
Hmm.
Thank you, Robert.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
reworded
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
But we haven't learned. We're still doing it.
I know. I know. Well, this is the other thought that hit me. Isn't the very nature of saying imminent and soon a kind of date setting in itself?
Yeah.
When really we should say who knows.
Exactly.
The Bible says say who knows.
Yeah.
It could be any time, could be 1,000 years.
Jesus said to be prepared. He doesn't say get prepared. Just be prepared.
Yeah,
And when
yeah,
it happens, it happens.
yeah. But so yeah, I kind of almost see this imminent push of the imminent soon return as almost spiritually abusive because it's such,
It is.
yeah,
It is. I agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's possibly a whole other conversation. That's why I'll just touch on it. We'll let you go, and then I want to invite you back in a few months because we've got some really good series coming up. We're going to be chatting to a lot of people that identify as gay Seventh-day Adventists.
Mm.
Another series where we've called "Listening to Women." And I'm just going to zip my mouth, and I'm just going to say, "Tell me your story."
Good.
Which, as you've
Yeah.
noticed, is hard for me to do.
Oh.
And then I want to dig deep later on into some of Ellen White's writings,
Mm.
and that's what I wanted to just quickly ask you now. And it's really got nothing to do with our topic, but I can't kind of let you go as someone that's so involved with writing and literally reading people's manuscripts and whatnot, you'd get a really good feel for how the skill of writing and that kind of thing. And we know that Fanny Bolton and Marion Davis in Ellen's later works were greatly influential in prettying up her work, and I've got no problem with that at all. But with regards to plagiarism and them, those two women kind of almost being ghostwriters. What are your thoughts briefly on that? I know it's a big topic, but just briefly, what are your thoughts on all of that? I've never been able to reconcile the Adventists tend to just go, oh well, that was then, and back then everyone was copying. Well, really, if you look into it, there was definitely no. That's right.
Well, let's put it this way. The copyright laws existed at that time.
Yes.
Now they have been revised. In fact, they were revised once or twice during my career as an editor. And it had fallen to my duty to be the publishing house attorney when it came to copyright matters. And that was, kind of stupid. But anyway, that's the way they did it. So, yeah, it was done. I think there's no question about that. Vince Ramick, the attorney, wrote quite a nice article about it in the Adventist Review years ago about that when this was such a hot topic. And I think he mentioned that, yes, it was done a lot. Doesn't make it right, but it was done. And the laws did exist. And those of us who were in the publishing work, we bumped into this kind of thing. Usually it was not on purpose, but all of a sudden something would jump out at us in a typescript, and we'd investigate a little more and a little more. And in fact, at Southern Pub, we printed a little brochure for authors with the pirate Blackbeard on the front of it, and talking about pirating other people's material, and we don't want to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
For some pastors, this happens because I think, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, in their preparation for their sermons, they did some reading and incorporated this material into their sermons, but they didn't put, why do you put a reference in your sermon? And so then later they write a chapter or write a book, and these sermons get into the book, and there's this literary piracy that is in there, and it was done innocently. Now, there are some other people that I don't think it was done innocently so much, I had a real run-in in Southern with someone, but that will be another story sometime,
Really?
Peter.
Do you think Ellen did it innocently?
I think so, but I can't judge her. I don't know. I think, and again, this is my own opinion, I think her son Willie and others later bent over backward to try to defend her and maybe even stretch some things. Oh, well, she put that book up on the shelf and never looked at it, Well, then, if that's the case, why are sentences and paragraphs the same?
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
But
had you read The White Lie, Walter Ray's The White Lie?
Oh, years ago, yeah. And before that, Don McAdams wrote the one on the Great Controversy, I think it was, in Ellen White.
Right.
That didn't go over well. His dad was the publishing director of the General Conference for all the literature evangelists.
Wow.
And his son does this historical.
What was that one called again?
Oh, it was something Don McAdams did, and I think it dealt with Great Controversy and her use of historical sources there. And he was quite a bit ahead of his time, as I recall. I think at the time, he was president of Southwestern College.
Right.
Adventist College, Southwestern Adventist College.
I'll look that up. I had Ron Numbers interview the other day, and he.
Oh, did you? I would love to meet Ron sometime.
And great guy.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Butler as well.
Yes.
Yes. The three of us we got together for a chat, as in you, me, and those two. The pre-interviews were just hilarious.
My cousin, whom I'm very fond of, is a friend of Ron Numbers.
Right.
And my cousin is at Andrews. He's retired now. He's a biologist. Just wrote a book on how he moved from solid creationism of short Earth to long ages. It's a marvelous book, very well written.
Your cousin's book?
Yeah, James Hayward.
Oh.
His father was an American preacher who frequently went to Australia to speak to the concerned brethren.
What was his name?
James Hayward also.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now that does ring a bell. So his son wrote quite a liberal work.
It's brand new.
And the father was quite a conservative. The father was quite a conservative.
He was. Yes, he was.
And what's the new book called? We'll chase that up.
There'll
be people
I'll have to email that to you.
Yeah.
Do I have your email address? I think I.
Yes, I sent you the Zoom link. So
yeah, the Zoom info.
Should be there. Yeah.
Okay, I need to. If I don't do that in the next day or two.
Yeah. There's bound to be people researching it right now and sending it. Yeah. Is it Don McAdams? Don McAdams?
Don McAdams is the one who did the early one on I think it was Great Controversy in Ellen White.
Yeah.
This was, I want to say in the 70s maybe.
Okay.
Oh, this was a long time ago. Yeah, he was kind of well, I'll tell you who was really ahead of his time. A man by the name of Guy Winslow. He lived in South Lancaster, Massachusetts. He taught at the academy there, and I think maybe the college for a while. He got his doctorate degree at Clark, I think it was Clark University. And he wrote his dissertation was on Ellen White and he talked about her use of sources. This was This was way back, way back.
Oh boy, I want to track that
He
down.
finally left the church, but he lived in South Lancaster, almost next door to the conference office, for the rest of his life. And my grandmother and grandfather rented an apartment up the second floor of his house. And he was there when he was still alive when I was there at AUC as a student. And I always would say hello to him as I was passing by. But I should have stopped and talked to him
Yeah.
and found out more about him.
Yes. And do you know what his book was called?
Oh, no, my cousin got it out of the Andrews University, the James White Library at Andrews, while I was visiting them one year for a couple of days, and I got a chance to thumb through Winslow's book, his dissertation. It was so far ahead of his time. It was incredible.
I'll get someone to chase it up here, because someone, Andrew, he won't mind me mentioning his name, Andrew Skeggs. He's a young, when I say young, Andrew, are you young?
Yeah. Hey, everybody's young at my age now.
But he's just said, James Hayward, the book is called Dinosaurs, Volcanoes, and Holy Writ.
Yeah.
He's your cousin, did you say?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll look that one up.
And my name is twice in that book.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
can't wait
I'll
to
tell
read
you.
it. Under volcanoes or dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Holy Wit.
Jim gives me the credit of getting him interested in birds years ago when we were kids.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
So when just back to publishing in Ellen White's time, Connie Barrenhausen were going to take her to court if she didn't take her book on Paul off the shelves, and she did. She was aware of
yeah, or at least was made aware, and this also happened with it happened with great controversy, and when this was called to her attention, she asked, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Uriah Smith. It wasn't J.N. Andrews. It wasn't S.N. Haskell, I don't think. It may have been Haskell, but I'm not sure. Asked that person to go through great controversy and redo the historical quotations.
Yes.
And put in even better ones, because she was criticized for using out-of-date material.
Yeah.
And as I recall, and George Knight will know this, I mean, he knows all this stuff. As I recall, this fellow did not want to do that because he believed in verbal inspiration. And so every word she wrote had to be, directly from heaven.
Right.
And she made him go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And revise her work.
Interesting. Hey, I can't leave without asking someone that's, been into publishing their thoughts on questions on doctrine, because I agree with the concerned brethren that it was a ground zero for our current tensions. Not that we didn't have tensions before, and not that things haven't been looping, but that the fight back against that with Andreessen and these guys was so powerful that it literally spawned this current fight against new theology. So I'd just love to kind of bring things to a close with your thoughts on that book, and then I want to chat just briefly about some of your work that is available.
Well, there was a whole generation of Adventist pastors who came out of the 50s who were deeply influenced by either M.L. Andreessen, and I say that about my dear friend Herb Douglas, who was, sinless perfectionist, and those who were influenced deeply by questions on doctrine. So from the 50s on, we had these two paths, and they were among our leaders and they were among our pastors. I do not have a copy of the annotated Questions on Doctrine book. And I understand that that is very illuminating. And so if anyone wants to discuss questions on doctrine, they need to have that annotated version. I think it would be really helpful in the discussion.
Mm.
I can't say I grew up on it, but in some ways, yes, I did. I was familiar with it. As a teenager, I think I pilfered it from my dad's library and read at least some of it, some in it. I could see that they were really struggling.
Mm.
Because like so many of us, Ellen White didn't always agree with herself.
Mm.
And so you had the quotations that Andreasen and his group would use, and then you had the quotations that the Questions on Doctrine people used in the back. Excellent, bunch of quotations there. And I don't know how the twain meet.
Yeah.
I suppose, well, I know if anyone somehow had access to, let's say, the sermons I preached in the 1960s before I went to Southern Publishing, and what I would be saying now in my sermons, I'm disagreeing with myself.
Yeah. If there was a cult of Richard to grow, it would divide into two paths.
I don't claim to be inspired, but here's something, Peter, everyone needs to know this. Ellen White, and I may be wrong, but I've searched the vault, the online vault. Ellen White never claimed to be an inspired commentator of Scripture, and she never claimed to have written inspired commentaries of Scripture. Wow. And that flies in the face of a lot of things you and I have heard throughout our lives.
What about when she says, "I was shown"? Is that enough of an inference is she humbly making a claim?
And when she was saying, "I was shown," was she telling us, was she interpreting a biblical passage?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about commentaries on Scripture.
Yeah. That's a fascinating point. Yeah, I haven't thought about it.
George Knight will know that kind of stuff.
So Richard Coffen said...
Yeah, sick. You can sick me on George. He knows me very well. Well, I shouldn't say very well, but we're good friends.
Good friends, yeah. Someone's already tracked down the Guy Winslow thing, and also Dr. Lyle Heiss has said it was Prescott that was talking about those changes.
Yes, W.W. Prescott. Yep.
And I'm hoping to get Dr. Gil Valentine on to the show as well, because he's written a book about Prescott.
Okay.
And Ron Numbers is writing a book about Kellogg, which is going to be fascinating.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
And Jonathan Butler's writing one about a biography of Ellen White, so that's going to be good too.
Yes. Wow.
I've offered them publishing deals from SDAQ&A. And the Guy Winslow, Andrew Skeggs, has said it's a 1933 PhD.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And it's called Ellen Gould White and Seventh-day Adventism.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. That's like 87 years ago or 86.
Oh, he was way ahead of his time.
And
in some ways, I think he got a little bitter. But why would he stay in this Adventist enclave for the rest of his life, right next door to the conference office?
He was praying over them.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm just wanting you to share with people some of your passion for your own writings, and tell us some if someone was to say to you, "I want to get into Richard Coffen's mind," what books you've written would you recommend?
Well, it may not be worth getting it to my mind. It may be pretty cheap. Well, I'm a compulsive writer. And so I am not happy, even today, if I'm not writing something.
Mm.
Some of the things I can share with Adventists today. Lawrence Seibold is the editor now, and we have a nice relationship.
Put a good word in for us for here. We're trying to get him on the podcast too.
Oh, good. Yeah, he's a fine person. I'm just waiting to meet him personally. Right now, the topic I have been working on, or the topics have been the judges. And what can we learn in the judges? I'm retelling their stories and trying to find out what some of the rabbinical traditions were about the judges. And, the rabbis would come up with, for instance, the name of Manoah's wife. Well, you don't find that in scripture. And, well, they have a name. I can't even pronounce it. But anyway, they had a name for her, And several names I've been able to find. So it's been a lot of fun.
Wow.
I'm in the first draft stage right now. And I just started the first part of an essay on Samson, whose name probably means something like Little Sonny. And that's a good name for him. I love that name.
Little Sonny.
Little Sonny.
That is classic.
And like his girlfriend there, Delilah, her name meant flirt. It's marvelous.
Oh, wow. Well, that ties into almost mythological status.
Yes.
Where the stories are being told and the characters have names that are created to match the story.
Yep. Gideon, his name meant basher. Fits pretty well in my book.
Yes.
So anyway, that's what I've been doing lately, Peter, and it's going to take a lot more, but at least it's an outlet. I love to write.
Yeah, good on you.
Perhaps one of my most influential books didn't sell well, and I'll tell you why. I wrote a daily devotion. I used to say to people, if you write a daily devotional, you're crazy. You're out of your mind. The discipline to write 365 or 366 little, and you had to have 342 or whatever it was words or thereabout, just crazy. Well, I wrote one, and it was called Snapshots of God.
Yes, that's one of the ones I ordered today.
Okay, it was doing well until the conference president in Michigan, one of his pastors, who was also an Old Testament scholar, and I won't mention any names, but he was from Africa. And he wrote, this pastor wrote a one-page condemnation of my book and gave it to his conference president. And the conference president shared that with all the Adventist Book Center people around North America anyway. And he had ordered, the conference president had ordered a skid of my books that he was going to give away to all the conference employees as a gift. And after this panning of my book, he returned the entire skid back to the publishing house.
What was the gist of the complaint and the criticism?
I was distorting scripture.
Wow.
I didn't believe in healthful living because I said that when John wrote his epistle and said, "Beloved, I hope that you are in good health," that was the way letters were started back then. It's the way we start our letters today too, isn't it, so often? Hey, Peter, hope things are going well for you. Hope you're... Yeah. So that proved that I didn't believe in our health message.
That's insane.
That was the kind of criticism. So I wrote a multi-page response, of course, and it got nowhere. But there was a pastor's daughter who wrote me and said, every year, my father has been sending me the daily devotionals, and I never read them. I finally told her, don't send me anymore. I don't read them. Don't read them, Dad. And she was barely, an Adventist anymore. Though she did apparently go to church. I don't know if it was occasionally or what. And she said, he gave me your book. And I don't know why, but I read it.
Wow.
And she said, if you can say those things in that book, I'm staying in the church.
Wow.
So that was encouraging, Peter.
That is great. Oh, man. Look, I've really loved our conversation. Please say yes to a future date. We'll shoot the breeze again on various topics.
Okay.
And I don't know how long this Glacier View retrospective is going to go for, but
Yeah, it's great.
I do appreciate those that have been making some contributions. And
So how did you and Lance get together here on this? How is he, Lance, contacting me, and how does all this work?
Well, I'd started SDAQ&A as solely a podcast about a year ago. And my interview with Des Ford, I divided into 3 parts. I went up to where he and Jill live, and prior, of course, to his sad passing. And I literally drove all the way up there. It took me about 11 hours, I think.
Whoa.
With my little recording stuff. And and we had a fascinating afternoon, and they became the first 3 episodes of my podcast, because I'm interested in talking to people from all kinds of spectrum of Adventism. And about, I don't know, sometime in the last few months, Lance wrote to me and said, I really love your podcast and those first 3 with Des. And he said, you should interview Dr. William G. Johnson. And I laughed and said, well, the chances of that happening are nil. But you go for it. You see if you can get him.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
about 8 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, he wrote and said, I've lined up an interview for you with him next week. So that kind of, I've got a lot to thank him for, because that led to that first interview, which we then decided to go live, which we now have continued doing. So it goes to podcast and to live. And that led to this explosion of the group growing from, 200 members to over 1,000. I think we're 1,100 now. In
Very
fact,
good.
I forgot to let in about 20 people this morning, so sadly they'll have missed the live. They'll be able to come back and watch it. So it's been a really amazing journey, and it's now something I'm spending 20 to 25 hours a week on.
Yeah.
And so I am calling out for, if people are appreciating the content, I'm going to post my PayPal details below, and if they could shoot me. We've actually started a subscription group only, where a lot of miscellaneous things, like the interview I did with Ron Numbers and Jonathan Butler. We chatted. They wanted to work out this Zoom thing, the week before. So we literally we were going to have a 10-minute chat that turned into an hour and a half conversation, which wasn't live. And I said to them, can I use this in our little subscription only group? So there's an SDA Inside Scoop group that's a very private group and only for donors. And that interview is going to be posted. And you and I could do one. We could have off the record inside scoop.
Yeah, right.
But so back to what you were saying. I'm very appreciative of young Lance, 21, and he's asked Ted Wilson to be on the program. So who knows what Ted will say?
Let's see what happens.
His office got back to him, but he's responsible for.
Excellent.
Pulling in the big names.
Yeah.
And of course, Gillian has been incredible. Like the amount of people she knows and the resources she's got. So she's behind the scenes helping with bookings and
is she in good health?
Yeah, very good.
Good.
Yeah, very good. I interviewed Bob Brinsmead the other day as well.
No.
Yeah, 3.5 hour interview. The Bob Brinsmead.
He's still alive.
Still alive, and he would be 87, 88, maybe.
Okay.
As alert as you can.
Oh my.
And so
Wow.
I'll invite you to the group because you might want to watch that one. It's really fascinating.
Wow.
And
Huh.
he's gonna be back in a couple of months as well to unpack. He's kind of lived his life in 3 stages,
Yes.
and
Yes.
he was very, very conservative, as you know, and
Right.
then he did the 1844 re-examined,
Yep.
and then he
Yeah.
kind of went quite secular. But boy, fascinating, fascinating guy. And where I was going with that is Jill sat in on that interview as well, and she kind of asked some questions and
Oh.
kept both of us on track.
Ah.
Kept both of us on
Wow.
track. But anyway, there we go. Life unfolds, and hopefully we're creating a resource for people to enjoy and learn from, warts and all.
Well, thank you for your kindness.
Thank
You're
you.
so nice that I could actually see. Yeah, this is amazing, isn't it? I
I
can
know.
actually see you. It's like we're
Just,
almost there.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
I had no idea 2, 3 months ago how powerful conversations can be in this kind of video conferencing format.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just didn't think it was going to. I tried Skype before, but it didn't really move me. But there's something about the upgrading of
Interesting.
technology that's just amazing.
Yeah. Huh.
So more to come. Hey, we really appreciate you being here, and thank you very much, Dr. Richard Coffen, for being
I'm
part
not a
of.
doctor. I'm not a doctor.
Oh, you're not a doctor?
Nope. Nope. Can't claim that.
Well,
Nope.
you've been advertised as that on the poster, so.
You know, I don't know how that ever got started, but this has been on for years and years and years.
Mm.
And at first, I always would say no, no, no. Then I finally gave up and said, oh, whatever. But now I'm back to no, 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 no. I didn't go through that kind of discipline, so
Oh dear.
I don't want to detract anything from my friends who have gone through the scholastic discipline, and
Mm.
I admire them.
Well, I guess they kind of zero right down to one very specific topic, and then write 1,000-page document on it. Well, until next time, Richard,
Yeah.
I'll look forward to crossing paths with you again, and
Okay. Well,
thanks
thank you.
again for your time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun. And let's see if we can get together again sometime then.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank
Lord
you.
bless.
And
That's it, huh?
I'll just double check we're off air, or it'll be one of those post.
All right.
We are
Did
off.
I say that?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that was fabulous. Oh, man, I've really, really enjoyed connecting with you, Richard. I had a great time with getting to know you, Ron Numbers and Jonathan Butler. Absolutely, what's the word for it? Edifying? I don't know. So John and Ron and I are going to get together for a Zoom chat, and I'd love to invite you along as well, just the four of us, just for fun. They said, oh, we just want to get together with you just socially, just have a chat.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I said, let's
right.
do it. I'll bring a coffee. You guys drink whatever. And so when that happens, I'll let you know. And
Oh, I'd love that.
I'll also send you a link to the group, just so that you can look at some of the interviews you might be interested. The current, the 28 are all in the group, and the previous ones are on the podcast. And then in the next, probably in the next couple of months, I'll start putting these all up to the podcast as well. But it's just been so time consuming.
Yeah. In your experience, did you ever get to know Jim Coffen?
Yes, I did.
We're related way back, hundreds and hundreds, back to what, 1660s or 40s or something.
You know what? Is it the same spelling? I didn't know.
No, it isn't. No, but
it's
we
like the
come
name.
from the same family that came over, and
like-
there are N-ins and I-ins and Y-ins and E-E-ins,
Yep.
and we're all descended from the same family way back in the 1600s.
It's like the Dixon is like spelt Dixon, which is mine, Dixson, Dickson, and it's
Yeah.
Richard's son is where it first came from. So,
Aha.
yeah,
Okay.
so we're
Got it.
connected in some way back there too.
Yeah.
Richard's son.
Yeah.
And also Nixon, Nixon.
Okay.
But Jim, I mentioned about the table tennis nights once a month,
Yeah.
Tuesday night. He was running those for us. So he
I'm
was
very fond of Jim.
great guy. I wonder where he is, but I'd love to interview him because he and Jim Zeideveld, the two Jims, were the only youth pastors that offered us any kind of light in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, Jim pastored in Florida at the Markham Hills, was it, honey? What? I think it was the Markham Hills Church. It was near Orlando, I think, somewhere in that vicinity. He retired, and he is heading up an not interdenominational, but an interreligious or religion organization.
Jim Coffen.
I don't.
Hello. Looks like I'm on my own. Maybe Peter will come back. And I don't know whether you're hearing me at all. But I'll carry on if anybody's left. Two things about Richard Coffen. A lovely man, always very pleasant. I've been writing to him today. He couldn't come on the show. But he does give a good picture at Glacier View of what was going on behind the scenes, that all the administrators he was working with went there to see Des fired. And this it wasn't so clear to us because we sort of on the outer, but on the Thursday when Elder Pearson's letter was read out, then a huge lot of amens went around the room. That was a very negative letter, and it actually tied the turn at Glacier. Turn the tide. See, I'm dyslexic. So the other thing that jumps out is, what was the problem with Heppenstall? Why didn't he support Des? And I actually haven't been terribly clear about this myself because Des never really told me. He did say that at Glacier View, he didn't, and I've said this before more than once, he didn't want to embarrass Heppenstall in front of everybody else. But there were differences of opinion. And I've recently worked out, partly because of something that Gilbert said in a series of slides. Anyway, I've done quite a lot of work of this, and I'm going to present it at some time. And I can't show my slides because Peter has to take those up, and he's not here. So here are 4 alternatives. I got this bit from Smuts and another bit from Gilbert. The first version of End Times was 1844, the date of the second coming. Well, that turned out not to be true, so we put a red cross against that. And the second was the shut door theory. Now, the shut door theory was the theory that in 1844 the whole world got their close of probation, and that 7 years later they expected Jesus to come. Well, when in 1851 he didn't come, that one was wrong. Now, the third version, which was also wrong, was the investigative judgment, that God was going through the heavenly records after 1844, Jesus, looking at the sins of the dead and the living to see if who was safe to save. Well, that's not biblical. But the Heppenstall came up with a version in 1950, 270, and was teaching it when Des was at Glacier View. And Gilbert said he turned the doctrine on its head and said it wasn't about our sins being investigated. It was us vindicating God. Now, let me just find, I've got different things here to give you an idea. And the next time I talk about this, you'll be able to see the pictures. And I'll probably have John Rosier on with me, who will comment on it better than I would do. So beginning in the 50s and on through the 70s, Edward Heppenstall began teaching that there were bigger issues involved in the pre-Advent judgment than just humans. And he had proteges. These were Hans Larendel, Rao Dedrin and Morris Venden through the 70s and 80s, who taught an understanding of the purpose of the pre-Advent judgment that included humans, Satan, the entire universe, and even God himself. And then on the sides, you had the moral influence people at Loma Linda. Particularly at this time, it was Graham Maxwell, who taught a sort of a governance theory. I'd have to go and look that up myself to find out what that was. And Jack Provencher. They were the two people who taught decades of dentists and medicos. So this theory, the moral influence theory, which is actually not a mainstream, it's a liberal view, is very much a West Coast medical type of belief. Right, so where am I going next? All right, I've got another thing that I can't show you, but I'll have to read from it. So you've got these 4 wrong versions of the investigative judgment. And the interesting thing is that the last 2, that God is investigating the sins of believers, which is in great controversy. This is a current view. And what Heppenstall taught, and various versions, that's another current view. And they're actually saying the opposite things. Ellen White's version says the focus is on God judging us. And what Heppenstall's saying is it's more us judging and vindicating God. So they're actually quite opposite opinions. I'd only just realised this. Now, last generation theology sort of takes this idea of our vindicating God, I think, from the liberals, and sort of tacks it on to Adventism, what they call an extension of Adventist doctrine. People like Dennis Prevey, Ted Wilson, and they follow John Wesley. And I've talked about John Wesley before. Ellen White was a Methodist all her life, and John Wesley was good on the gospel, but he had an error on sanctification, and which led to perfectionism. So that's sort of an overview of where Heppenstall and Des would have differed. And the incident where Richard Coffen is talking about Heppenstall not responding to Des, I don't think that was the Tuesday night, but he doesn't say. But on the Tuesday night, you remember that Heppenstall, he's at the front. Now I've got to do it so that you can see it, and I don't know whether it's the other way around. But on one side, Des is standing at the mic. So he's out here. And then Heppenstall is up on the platform questioning him. And then, this is Heppenstall. This is really funny. Neil Wilson jumps in. So Heppenstall was questioning Desmond, saying, can't you see the judgment? He meant the investigative judgment in Daniel 7. And Des couldn't, because he didn't agree with them on this point, on Heppenstall's new version of the investigative judgment. So this is why in he goes boundary writing. I've mentioned this before. He gave long answers because he didn't want to deal directly with Heppenstall. He told me before he died, Heppenstall was my beloved professor. I didn't want to embarrass him in front of everybody. And he said the same thing happened at Loma Linda when Paxton was down there, and he and Paxton and Heppenstall had an interchange about sanctification by faith. And again, Des responded to that. He did a very good job, but he didn't want to directly embarrass Heppenstall in public. So that's the story. They did have a difference. And, I was thinking to myself, really, you've got two opposite doctrines going around on the investigative judgment. One's represented by the early pages of Great Controversy, and the main business plan of the church is like the bike rides and Bugsy and just plain the big mail-outs, which has cost the church billions of your dollars. Not that you've got billions of dollars. So the main business plan of the church is to push Ellen White, particularly Great Controversy, because it's got all the key Adventist doctrines in it. So it's a form of easy, you don't actually have to talk to anybody, you can give them a book. And of course, currently Reclaiming the Prophet has been stopped publication by the Ellen White estate. Now that's because they're worried about the key person at the center of the business plan being shown to be wrong. And I think particularly because for those who know, who've seen some of her testimony, she was pretty mean. And the church doesn't want this to get out. So it's still having effects. So that's probably all I can say at this point. So I'm going to leave. See you later. Bye-bye.